Give me 1 second to go grab something. Okay. Okay, let's get everything set up, situated, and we'll get this shared to Discord real quick. Let's see, to Discord. Okay, there we go. Welcome in, everyone. Let's see, let's get this to my story real quick. And then we're gonna share to 1, 2, 3, 4, oops, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 10. Now let's select you, and then select you, and select you and you. There we go. No, Sebastian, but thank you for asking. Welcome in, everyone. Let's see. Share this to, let's see, you and you, you and you, you and you and you and let's see, there. Okay, there we go. Got it reposted, and last thing to add is this, and then we will talk about what's going on today. Add that, and we are going to add where is it? Welcome in, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful, or you're having a wonderful day. We have Colin Jones joining us. He is running for President of the United States in 2028. And where is my lip stuff? Okay, we'll search for it this way. Okay, well, it's not on the list for some reason, so we'll just go with that. Okay. Hi, Michael. Welcome in. I hope you're having a wonderful Saturday. Okay, so I'm going to invite Colin in. Thank you for the heart me, Eric, and welcome in. So let's find him. There we go. And add. Confirm. There we go. Welcome in, everyone. I hope you're having a good Saturday. Okay, so we have, do we have audio?
We should have audio. Hello, hello.
But do we have video?
That's going to be the question. There we are.
Okay, now we have video. There we go. We are
Happy
set.
Saturday.
Happy Saturday. How are you today, Colin?
I am well. How about yourself, Shadow?
Doing really good. I will say this, that seeing the comment about how you accepted my invite, but you've been, turning down or delaying others. Thank you. That actually makes me feel really, really good.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's the truth. We've been very selective about how we want to interact with media. We have some very kind offers from very large outlets, and we would like to pursue those. But at the same point in time, I wanted my first interview with WTF Nation Radio to be a veteran outlet. And I wanted to, organically react with creators here in TikTok, because this is where we began our campaign. I felt we owe it to the community here, and I want to live through our values that way.
I love that. No worries, Joe. Thanks for stopping by and saying hi. No, I genuinely, I love that. I want to help get you guys out as much as possible. And I love the fact that
Thank you.
you are willing to interact with these small creators on TikTok who believe in you, and
Of
that's part
course,
of
of
why I'm
course.
doing what I'm doing. I get the fact that I only have 13,000 followers. Okay. And your point. Here's the
Exactly.
thing. Here's the thing is, my friends, all it takes is one voice, just one voice to spark a revolution. And you never know when that one voice is going to trigger it. It could be my voice. It could be your voice. It could be the guy down the street who finally opens up his mouth and says something to somebody one day. We never know. So I would rather give somebody the platform and the opportunity to use their voice to be as vocal as possible, to get you out to as many people as possible in the hopes that maybe you're that one voice. Maybe I'm that one voice.
Precisely.
Maybe we've already started it and we just don't know it.
I would
It's,
double down on that. I think we are those
yep,
voices. I think
I
we
think
are.
we
And
are
I
too.
think moments like these are going to be the thing that allow us to save our democracy, to save our country, and make a better America for all of us.
I absolutely agree because doing stuff like this is, especially after you hit about 45 minutes to an hour, like it or not, I'm a goofball. You cannot keep it up. If you're not being authentically you, I'm going to find out within the first hour and I'm going to start razzing you about it, being like, why are we not just being ourselves?
Love it. Love it.
Don't
Love
think
it.
I won't. I will. But that's just it is. I am personally so tired of people saying what we want to hear because they think we want to hear it. No, I want to know your unabashed, unbiased opinions. I want to know how you personally feel about it. Why? Because that's the person I'm going to vote for, is the person who's willing to tell me, listen, this is bullshit and I agree with you. Let's change it. Bet. How
Love
many
it.
people are willing to
Love it.
sit
Love it.
down and just say, this is bullshit? Let's change it.
Hmm.
No, it's, oh, well, it's this or that or blah, blah. I have watched politics since the 90s. I'm 41. I'll be 42 in July. It's gross. It's slimy. It's schmarmy. I promised myself at 14 I'd never get
Hmm.
involved. And here I am at 41 going, well, I'm kind of involved. I don't want to actually ever run for office, but I idolize Barbara Walters. I could
Mm,
interview people. I could give them a
certainly.
voice. I could
Certainly.
have those
Certainly.
conversations and have the hard conversations with people and then be like, listen, if you get elected, I want to keep having conversations with you. Why? Because you know what? Let us hold you accountable. You promised us
Please.
during your campaign we could hold you accountable because that's something we all want is government accountability. And that means
Hmm.
holding our representatives accountable, period.
110%.
So
110%.
let us have that conversation and be like, listen, you said you were going to do this, this, and this. You're not doing it. Why? If there's a reason, give us a good reason as to why you're not following through with the things you said you were going to do. Otherwise, it's just you said one thing and shit came out. That's it.
Hmm. Hmm.
I've,
Oh,
go ahead.
go ahead. No, 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 no. You're ramping up. I don't want to slow you down. No.
No, I was going to say, like, with the sending the offers out, I've had a lot of positive reactions. I've had a
Mm,
few negative ones. I had one gentleman tell me that he helped to create this medium 20 plus years ago, and he learned through his time that it wasn't worth the time and investment for the 2 hours. He was better off knocking on doors rather than maybe getting two measly votes from me. And I'm like, okay, well,
whew.
best part is that dude's in my state. Um,
Oh,
his
I'm so
district
sorry.
is just south of where I live and work. I have friends who live in his district. Two of my
Mm.
friends were the ones who told me to reach out to him. So I let them know what he said. Yeah, I can tell you right now, he lost a good chunk of voters.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know this guy, but holy crap, that is an awful thing to say to a human, and that is an awful thing that
Yeah,
must be heard. No, I mean, look, I was on deck in Egypt. I was on station in Egypt when the Tahrir Square protests kicked off. You might remember those, and like I saw
yep,
firsthand what citizens can do when we are connected, when we are able to empower each other and lift each other up. One of the things I really unabashedly love TikTok. And it's because it's the closest thing we have to like the village square left. You know, we don't have a lot of third spaces left in America. This is an amazing one. Right. And, I, again, like I said, I owe it to, God, you hit so many great points. So accountability is sort of the core of my campaign. It's part of our guiding philosophy. It's one of the reasons why I want a lot of the initial media steps. Because remember, we launched in March. I was a private citizen before March 15th. So this is brand new to me in many
yep.
aspects, and I want to make sure that community accountability is something just that you can't take out of our DNA. It's something that's going to be with us to the White House during our administrations, and I want to make sure that it's something that we can all feel. like it's tactile and it's real and it has mechanistic outcomes and results. So it is my honor to be here. It is my honor to be hosted by you. That is how I think about this. So thank you so
Thank
much.
you. And it's my honor to have you. It really is. All of you. Believe it or not, I'm honored when you say yes. I'm honored when you schedule. I'm honored when you come back. Why? Because you don't have to. Just like I don't have to give you my time, you don't have to give me
Certainly.
yours. And in my world, this is the way I look at it is I would love to contribute money to everybody's campaign. Realistically, I
Oh, we
can't
can't do
do
that.
that.
No, I can't do that.
I have
Like
a family to
that's
take care of, first of all. Second of all,
yeah.
we live in an economy where the people who were thriving are now struggling again, and the people
Hmm.
who had finally gotten out of their worst spot and were finally into the struggling spot, which was better than where they were, are taking the step back. I'm
Hmm.
talking to one of my best friends who's a mod here, and we were talking about her home. It's on the verge of being condemned. They were slowly getting to the point where they could actually start repairing their house. And now they're taking those steps back. And it's like, shit, I understand. Like the things we used to do, we're going back to, okay, did we do during when we were struggling and not thriving? That's what we're
Hmm.
going back to. We shouldn't be taking those steps back at all. We should be going
No,
forward. So
we're
how
in the
come
middle of
over the
a
last,
huge. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, so how come over the last, just let's say 15 months, things have gotten so much worse, but we were promised it was going to be so much better.
I saw a great projection that showed the prices of inflation, and if this administration, this current administration, had done nothing, they had literally just phoned it in and done taken no actions, inflation would have corrected itself over time. We are living in an affordability crisis that is at this point manufactured, right? And I don't think it's
Yeah.
manufactured purposefully, only because I think the people in charge are that incompetent. But we are facing a massive recession, and my fear is that we are facing a much darker economic outlook than we've seen probably in our lifetimes. And my family lost our home in 2008 and 2009 during the financial crisis. We are
Yeah.
unable as a people, as workers, to afford living the American dream. And this has to stop. And, if accountability is a major pillar of my campaign, if authenticity is a major pillar of my campaign, if transparency are things that hold up my campaign, yeah, then affordability is everything else, right? We are in a stability crisis in America, and we're all feeling it. So that's one of the many, many reasons. I see a comment. Trump doesn't even want to say the word affordability.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're trying to liken it to communism, right? They're
Yep.
calling out candidates, Democratic candidates, and saying, hey, they're talking really about affordability. No one should be able to afford everything. That's not what we're talking about, right? We're not
Yeah.
talking about leveling the playing field unilaterally. We're talking about the ability for Americans to afford to thrive, to afford their families, to afford upward mobility. And they're taking it away from us. So we have to take it back.
100% because listen, I have two kids. I wanted four kids growing up. I stopped at two because honestly, we couldn't even afford the second one, but we wanted a second one. I would love to have a third child. However, I live in a state where I'm afraid to get pregnant because I'm afraid if I have an ectopic pregnancy or if the baby dies inside of me, the state's not going
Hmm.
to do anything and I'm going to die. Why? Because we live in a state where they put a permanent injunction on the full abortion ban, but doctors still have the ability to say, oh, we're not going to touch you. Your body's got to take care of it. I've already had the issue back in my early 20s where I miscarried and they let the baby sit inside of me for 5 weeks. I was septic and dying before they did something. That was almost 20 years ago, and it's just gotten worse. They
Hmm.
want me to have another kid. There's no way. There's no way. My husband and I'm on birth control. We could use contraceptive. We've opted to go celibate instead because my son was a birth
Jeez.
control and condom broke baby.
Hmm.
Okay. Birth control failed, condom broke baby, less than 1% chance. He'll be 15 in September. So it's one of those, I won't even take the chance. I won't even. So my husband and I have to cut that part of our relationship out in order to make sure we can survive in this world with the two kids we have and not bring a third into a house where we don't have room for them. We can't afford them as much as I would love them. That means that I have to quit my career. I have to quit my job. I have to stay home again because we cannot afford daycare because daycare is twice our mortgage.
Hmm.
Annually, it's twice the mortgage payment. There's no way that a normal average family can survive in this country. Those are just the basics. I could go on and on and on about the other crap that's happening on the background that most people don't realize it's going on in the courts. It's going on in here. It's going on here. It's going on here. Like, I'm being sued over I entered into a agreement with Discover. I didn't
Mm,
know that last May, Capital One bought Discover. Did you know that?
mm, I've heard
Yeah, they
about it.
merged. They merged the two. So now, Capital One knows Discover. Well, what they decided to do is they weren't going to honor any of the payment plans that anybody had entered into with Discover. Unless you
Mhm.
paid their X amount, they weren't going to do it. I had one phone call letting me know that I needed to pay $195 a month instead of $150. I couldn't afford that. So you know what they
Hmm.
did? They stopped taking my payment altogether and they sued me. Why? Because they're going to get their piece of the pie either way it goes, but they're not happy with having a smaller piece and getting money. They'd rather have the whole pie and screw you over.
Unchecked
That's
capitalism
what's
is
happening.
destroying every aspect of American life, right? And you
Now,
hit a lot of points. When we
there's
talk
more
about
to
women's
that
rights,
story.
oh, go ahead. You want to go? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Don't let me stop you.
So
Yeah.
that happened back in September. I didn't know they garnished me, they were suing me, anything until after I received the final garnishment paperwork on March 3rd. Turns out March 2nd was the final court hearing. I could have gone and contested it, and guess what? I would have won. But I didn't even know about it until 2 days later when I actually got the letter in the mail on March 4th that was dated January 27th and wasn't mailed out until a month later on the 27th of February. I got
It's
everything
abominable.
after the facts, and legally I have no recourse
Hmm.
because they sent it out before the date happened, quote unquote. They printed it before the date happened. It's on me for not having it.
That's how businesses has been constructed in America. The game really is rigged. And that I think is probably something both sides of the table are waking up to. I've had this conversation with Democrats, with Republicans, with people on the far left and people on the right, and we all
Mm-hmm.
understand that the game is rigged. We have different diagnoses, I think, sometimes across the parties about what part hurts the most, and we have different diagnoses about like where does this originate. I think we're all starting, at least that's what the polling suggests, is that both sides of the aisle are starting to come to a consensus through a mass popularity about what needs to happen to fix it. Right? I often talk about, hey, we're running the most popular campaign in American history. We have numbers to back that up. There is no core part of our campaign that goes below a 60% approval polling on the latest issues. Right? So, like we talk about like women's rights. Over 60% of Americans to make sure reproductive freedom is a thing that they have as a right enshrined in law, codified in law. Protecting emergency pregnancy care. That is something that upwards of 70% Americans want to see. The fact that it's not 100% is heartbreaking, but we have to understand there is so much misinformation. There is so much horrible captured legacy media that is pumping out this information to trick voters, to create a culture war. When in reality, when you start talking to people, when you actually have face-to-face conversations like this, we find out that hey, Americans all want the same thing. We want the capacity to live and pursue our happiness without horrifying government overreach, and we want a Commonwealth that protects us, but also shares the amazing abundance that we've created in this country. And instead, what we get is rigged economies. We get what we like to call end stage capitalism, where the biggest players in the economy are using their weight to manipulate law and crush us. And they know it's wrong. And the sickest and saddest part of it is that I launched this in March, right? I launched this on March 15th, and
Right.
I've had some really interesting conversations with people who have a lot of money. And the saddest part of it is that they don't want this system either. And that's terrifying. The people who are benefiting from it, the people who have helped construct it in some cases, are also sick and tired of the what we'd like to call the hope crushing machine, right?
Mm-hmm.
No one wants this. And our leadership on both sides of the aisle seem to be frozen to do anything about it. They one seem to be unfrozen to call it truth to power. You mentioned that, right? They seem to be completely unable to have this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And that is beyond concerning. Um, but then they also fail to come up with like real clear plans to actually address these things. Even our most ardent fighters, right, they who are establishment politicians will vaguely gesture at these kind of things, but then when a time comes to actually do something about that, um, Biden could have moved to do many of the things I'm advocating right now.
Hmm.
Right, a lot of the solutions that I advocate are not new. I am not some kind of
Mm.
genius who has cooked this up myself. This is backed by a lot of scholastic research. This is backed by a lot of people who had and were screaming for things like, I don't know, maybe we should pursue court packing. When we understand that women's rights are under attack, when we understand minority rights are under attack by an activist Supreme Court that has been rigged by an insider political process, maybe we need to do something radical, right?
Like
And so
literally,
this
that's
isn't
what I've been
new.
saying.
Yeah, yeah. This goes back to the 1930s. This is not novel. I did not think of this yesterday.
We can
There is
even go back to the
established law and arguments for
1920s,
this.
and it really started back in the 1920s.
Oh yeah, yeah. One of my favorite things, a huge tangent. One of my favorite things is the term redneck, right? So like I served in, so I was in the United States Marine Corps. I was an infantryman in the United States Marine Corps. I did my initial training out here in California, so I'm a Hollywood Marine,
Hmm.
and then I got stationed in North Carolina, right? So like the vast majority of people I interacted with and served with between deployments were good old boys, right? These were guys from who had trained at Paris Island, and these were guys who were from like all across the Deep South, and a beautiful culture. You learn amazing things because I'm from California. I had not been exposed to that natively, and I learned what they claim the origin of the term redneck really means, and it's a
Hmm.
workers' right movement, right? The
Hmm.
workers' rights used to in the 1920s all the way from like the early 1800s to the 1920s. Workers would tie red bandanas around their neck to signify that they align with what we call today democratic socialism, right?
Hmm.
But we don't learn that history, right? We don't learn this. But as you pointed out, these go back a very far way and are part of the American DNA too. And both sides of the aisle want you to forget that. They want you to argue and be mad and feel powerless. But the fact of the matter is, we have the ability and we have the playbook to actually implement real effective change. And it just takes citizens standing up together to get that done.
And on that point, this is where I challenge everybody. Go read the original forefathers' writings and their letters to each other and
Thomas
to the
Paine?
people
Yeah.
in the
Hmm.
future. All of it. Thomas Jefferson, Thomas Paine, George
The Federalist
Washington, James
Papers. Yep, yep,
Madison,
yep.
John Adams, like all of them. Because they sit there and they actually detail out for us what we are to do if for some reason we have the government we have today. They literally sit there and go, if your federal government and your president fails you, you take back the power on the state level. If the state level government is failing you, you take back your power, period. You do. You
You
start by
organize.
voting
Mhm.
everybody out. You start on the local level and you vote in the people that you need in order to make sure that you are thriving and not struggling. Like in Indiana, the Sunbucks program. That's the federal program that they give out every year to make sure kids are fed over the summer. Right? It's not a lot of money. It's $120 per kid for the summer.
Mhm.
That breaks down to $60 a month. That's $15 a week. That's $3 a day for 5 days. And guess what? If you go do the research, go Google it. They couldn't be asked to fill out the paperwork. I'm
Mhm.
not joking about that one. We didn't get that program because the people in charge didn't want to do the paperwork. It was too much of a hassle. Those are their words. That's a problem. I'm sorry. If that is your damn job, it is not too much of a hassle to do your damn job. Fill out the paperwork.
Yeah, I wish I had jobs like that. That sounds great. Say, hey, I don't
Right?
want to do it. Throw caution to the wind and for the fact that you're crushing human lives under you and just not care. No, that's the kind of. I think you have the diagnosis correct. Like, right, that we are in we're in a stability crisis, but we're also in a legitimacy crisis. So it's not just that we can't afford anything, right? It's not just that healthcare is the single most asked about issue on my videos and pages. It's not just
Yeah.
about the fact that hey, you mentioned your family plans have thrown into chaos because of the political atmosphere. I don't have kids because me and my partners could not afford it. Me and my partner could not afford it, and that is something that has uh, broken my heart. That is something that I know many people in my cohort, my social cohort, are also feeling. right? This is something like we call it the millennial disease, right? We can't afford to buy homes. We can't afford to raise children. And that is a system that is not working for anyone. So we have that arm, but then we have an entirely different arm that is our government's just not legitimately representing the interests it's supposed to, right? And it's somewhere between capture, it's somewhere between greed, and it's somewhere between like corruption and malfeasance, and just a process that has gone unpruned for too long, right?
Yep.
So we have the situation where we even have programs that can just fix a lot of these problems, where we can just not, we do not have the people elected doing the job they need to do to get it done. That's one of the reasons we have the screwy Supreme Court we have right now. That's
Yep.
one of the many reasons that everything is falling apart. But the glorious part about all that, and the part I really want people to sort of remember, is that we can fix it. The
Yes.
horrifying things that we're seeing is a reflection of the fact, because they would not be so horrific if everyone just remembered, we can actually fix things, right? It takes effort, it takes organizing. Like you said, we have to organize across the country, from our neighborhoods up, right? We have to start with our neighbors and move up.
Yep.
But we can fix it. I mean, right
Yep.
now, Graham Plattner seems like he might win Senate in Maine, and he's running on an extremely similar platform. Uh, in New York, here where I live, I currently live in the East Village of New York. Mayor Mamdani proved that we can, the workers, the regular people of America, we can actually take back power. This is not
Yep.
impossible.
And
So,
he attributes winning to all the volunteers, which he's not wrong. Like, you have a lot
mhm.
of people, and he had people not even in his state volunteering for him. And that's just it. Is this is volunteering as far as I'm concerned, giving you a
Oh yeah,
platform,
yeah.
giving you 2 hours of my time. As far as I'm concerned, I'm part of everybody's campaign at this point. Are you kidding me? Like, let me
Love it,
help
love it, love it.
you, help yourself, help me help you. But to bring up the Supreme Court, and this goes to somebody's question earlier where they asked, HOV said, if elected, would you be willing to urge Congress to make term limits for Congress? Now, my
Yeah.
question is, would you be willing to push it not just for Congress, but also for judges? Because I'm of the
Yes.
opinion, I'm sorry, finding out somebody's been sitting in a seat for 30 years, you're part of the problem. At this
I
point, you
agree.
are part of the problem because you're not affecting change in the positive way. And my whole thing is, I keep trying to tell people, I've been telling people since 2017, the Supreme Court has been seated. Why do I say that? Because they have selectively, over the course of the last 2 decades, purposely put the people into position who started overturning laws regarding
Hmm.
monopolies when it comes to insurance companies and pharmacies, laws regarding Roe versus Wade. Let's see, there's a law about environmental impact and cleaning up chemical spills, where instead of having to pay $150,000 and have to fund the cleanup for the chemical spill, companies now pay a nominatory, $15,000 and they're done. It is now up to the
Hmm.
state to make sure it gets taken care of. Where's the state going to get those funds from? That's a good question. From the taxpayers who don't have the money to give to the state because the federal government's taking all our money in taxes. And then we have gas, $4.99 a gallon. It's never been that high in Indiana before. This is the highest I've ever seen it in my state. The only other time I've seen it higher than $5 was when I was in New Mexico last year. It was
Hmm.
5.92, and I about threw up on the side of the road when I put $60 into a car,
Jeez.
because I've never put $60 into a car before. I've never had a car with an
It's
engine that big that took $60.
it's terrifying. I have friends who
No.
can't get to work and they're losing their jobs. I have friends who can't get to school, and their academic life is in jeopardy. Like, we are at the breaking point. We are moving into a very scary time, and I say that with all soberness. And I'm not trying to fearmonger. We are in crisis, and
Yeah.
the administration is. I would like to say they're doing nothing. The current administration, no, they're making it worse. They've
They're
created
doing
a
something.
crisis.
They're making it worse by telling us, "Oh, guys, just to pull it a little tighter, it'll be fine in a few months." No, it won't. Because here's the thing, guys. You have to understand. This is gas prices, okay? The reason why it's gone up is because we have no more of the cheap oil left. We've used all of it. So now we're paying for the premium oil they've bought after the Strait of Hormuz, was closed, and they started paying more money for the oil we're importing because we're for some reason not using the crude oil we generate in our own country to generate the gas that we need so we could have extremely low prices, because that makes no sense. No, we have to sell all of it to other countries to make it income so those companies profit and then buy it from other countries and other businesses, so those businesses profit. But at no point does the American citizen profit from any of this. In fact, we're the
No.
ones paying more for everything at the end of the day.
Hmm. Precisely. Yeah, I mean, a lot of it can be also just like explained by supply and demand, right? We
Yep.
created a stranglehold on one of the most productive energy regions in the world. Excuse me. I've served. I've done Strait of Hormuz crossings. Like I've faced down the IRGC on their little speedboats with their machine guns. Like I've seen the threat there. Anyone who had eyes and has been to that area of the world could tell you that this was a disastrous plan, right? I served in the United States Marine Corps. I was in combat arms. Like I saw the mechanics of how these foreign policy decisions can play out. This was predictable. You know, you don't need a crystal ball to do this. And you know, that's part of the horrible mismanagement. That's part of the stability crisis, compounding on a legitimacy crisis. To your point about, because I want to give that person who asked the question initially an
Yeah.
answer, a hard answer. Yeah, no, I support term limits. So I support term limits across the federal government. So by that, I mean for Congress people, both representatives and senators. I support the amount, a limit to the amount of terms one can serve. I don't want to cut a straight age line there. When it comes to the Supreme Court, I think it's a lot clearer to make the argument that A, we should either have some kind of equitable term limit lane, or B, we should draw a hard line in the sand about aging. You know, I think that's something all Americans want to see. Again, like I throw it to people back to hold me to account on this. Look up the latest polling on what Americans want to see with term limits. That outside of affordability and outside of the horror of what's going on with the current administration, that's the single next question I get on every single one of my popular posts is what do you think about term limits? I fully support them. Now, as president, I can't unilaterally do that, unfortunately. We have some kind of controls that we can do to help make that a little bit faster. But really, that is going to be working with our coalition partners in Congress, which we've already started doing. So we
Yep.
have and are building a coalition with like-minded candidates across the
Yep.
country. We are actively reaching out. We have rosters building for people who that we are preparing to in 2028 create a mandate because this is the American mandate. Like, again, we are the single most popular policy platform to exist in American history. We do not support a policy that we have built into our agenda item that ranks lower than 50%. So that is actually where we are. We are the popular front. This is what Americans want, and this is what we will deliver for America. About women's rights, I just saw that question pop up. We have a lot of things we could do. So again, as president, we own the executive agency arm, right? So some things that we can do immediately is by restaffing agency heads and leads through the appointment process. We can give mandates and directives about where we see the pain points really being. We can sue the administration can sue, and the Department of Justice independently can sue on behalf of the federal government states that enact horrifying laws that infringe on women's rights, and that we can again work with our coalition partners again outside of the executive to codify things like reproductive freedom. We can codify things that allow for and fight against any kind of infringing on women's rights, and we can sue in the event that we lose Congress. When our, let's say our opposition tries to push through laws like the original verbiage of the SAVE Act, which was almost explicitly designed to disenfranchise women voting. And that's something that a lot of their allies have said. They want to turn the country into a world where women no longer have the right to vote, where husbands are the only vote in their household, and that women are disenfranchised citizens. We're seeing this across the federal government. They're attacking the ability for Black and African American communities to be able to participate in our democratic process. They want to turn the country into something terrifying, and we're going to stop them.
They want to turn it into Gilead, is really what they want to do. I wish I
Yeah,
were joking
they
about
watch
that
that
one.
show and they get excited, right? I remember
Yeah.
reading that book for the first time, and I was so upset I threw it across the room.
Yeah.
Just because, not because I dislike the book, but just because the outcome that she was able to foretell was that terrifying, and I saw it as that much of a real possibility. And now the folks behind Project 2025, who are now in the administration, they're wanting to try to play it out. And the good news is that they're so incompetent, we're able to stop them most of the time.
Yep.
But I want to go a step further and make sure we get back the rights that have been taken from us and protect rights forevermore. That's what I'm
And
about.
that's where Project 2025, well, the other thing that people have to realize is that's only half of their game book. The other half is Project
Hmm.
Esther. And if you haven't read that
Yep.
one, you need to go read that because that explains the whole Christian nation part of all of it and why that religion's being pushed so damn hard to the point where I see influence in celebrities who have never been religious starting to go to church and preaching all this. And I'm like, oh my God, they're paying them to spout this same nonsense. And it's like,
It's terrifying. Yeah, no, I
it
want to
is.
affirm to everyone, I believe in a Republican separation of church and state. Like, I mean that with the small r, not the big R. We live in in a democratic republic. We live in a representational constitutional democracy. The only way our society functions is that our government is non-biased when it comes to the personal decisions like faith that citizens hold. I grew up with parents who were fans of a lot of different faith traditions. I lived a
Mm-hmm.
very interesting life in that context. I personally am an agnostic, right? I think this is the first platform I'm actually saying that. But I work and protect, and I have people on my team who are very devoutly religious
Mm-hmm.
across different denominations, across different faiths.
Mm-hmm.
My role, my view on faith and government is that the government has really two ways that we interact, right, with faith. The first is to protect religious minorities, right? People have a right to the free practice of the religion as long as they're not infringing on the rights of others. Um, and the second is to protect all Americans from the infringement of religion onto them that they do not want. Right? You have religious freedom, you have religious liberty in this country, and that cuts both ways. It's a freedom to practice, but it's also a freedom from government overreach. No religion should be pushing prayers in our schools. Period. That is unconstitutional in my view. Uh, we
In
can
public
fight all day.
schools.
Yep, exactly, exactly.
But that's just as,
Um,
yeah, no, no. Mm-hmm. And the Oklahoma having the Ten Commandments in there, that gets my goat. That gets my goat every day.
no, the government needs to maintain impartiality. Right, it's the only way that we protect all Americans and especially religious minorities. The moment that we start pressing some kind of religious line of the government, we are in a constitutional crisis. So we are way past that point, in my view. The reports that many service members received a religious message as we began the illegitimate and ill-advised operations
Mm-hmm.
against Iran are extremely concerning, and I think are
Yep. The fact
grounds
that they were
for
told
a
it was
fresh
holy
investigation.
war. Yep.
That's and
That's
look, yeah, I want to be clear here. Like I was a Marine infantryman, right? I knew lots of guys with tattoos like Heath Six, right? And I knew
mm-hmm.
lots of guys who are my close friends who described the fight against Islamofascism in religious terms. My opposition to what happened there was that again, the government should not be interacting with religion in that way. It violates the rights of its constituents and it damages the protections we have around religious communities in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So, that is my clear and unequivocal opinion.
As a religious follower, he goes, I completely agree that education and religious education should be separate. No, it should. It absolutely 100% should. If you are a private Christian school, I get it. You do what you do. But at a public school, I'm not sorry if I say I don't want my kids indoctrinated into your religion. I would like to be able to teach them about all the different religions myself so they can actually choose which one fits for them rather than being forced into one and being told all the rest are wrong. Because that's how I grew up. And then I was told to shut up every time I questioned why
Mm,
we said and did one thing, but we did something else. Perfect example. We said we're tolerant. We say we yeah, we're all equal, but we don't act that way. And I would ask my aunt, how come we say we do this, but we act this way? Oh, honey, we just say we do. But towards people like them who aren't like us, we don't treat them that way. Why? They're human beings too. Well, they don't look like us. They don't act like us. They don't sound like us.
mm.
They don't believe like us. There was always a reason why we don't treat them the same way we do our brothers and sisters. the same way we do
And
people who look like us, the same way we do the people that go to the same religious organization we do. Why? Because we're taught that we treat one set of people one way and we treat another set of people a different way. When reality is, if you knew anything about your God and your Christ, he told you really treat everybody the same, because what? Guess what? We're all really outliers. We are all really outliers of society. And those were his people.
I love
So
the
it's one of
message.
those like,
Unfortunately, yeah. There's a massive misstep, I feel, in religious life. Like, to be clear,
yeah.
I went to a religious college for my undergraduate degree. Like, I went to St. Mary's College of California. It is a small
Mm-hmm.
private Catholic school in California. So I'm all for and support, the right for religious aligned schools.
Mm-hmm.
I have nothing but good things to say about that institution, even though I'm not Catholic. So it's not about some kind of opposition to the interaction with religion in public life. It's
Right.
about the opposition of the interaction between religion and government life. The government should have no say, should have no religious background to it or color to it,
Yep.
right? That is the only way we protect everyone's rights in America, and it creates better governance, in my view.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, when it comes to equity, I think that is a guiding principle for me personally. It kind of constructs my own personal political philosophy, which is kind of how I found myself here. I call
Yep.
myself a radical Republican, which is a phrase I'm learning quickly is very new to a lot of people. But this again is like an old thing I am borrowing. This is not like a Colin Jones original. Um, no, this is the Republican Party of Lincoln. So this is radical Republicans were the individuals who fought and organized against slavery in the lead up to the Civil War. So they're abolitionists. Folks like John Brown would have gladly said he was a radical Republican. And it's about equity, constitutional liberty, fighting against corruption and aristocracy, right? The idea that all men are created equal in likes of dignity and standing, and that the government should exist to enable everyone's rights, right? Not just the select few and not through any kind of system of capture. Now, to be clear, those old those old radical Republicans had some pretty nasty nativist views, and they had some pretty nasty anti-Catholic views. Obviously, I don't represent those. I think
Right.
that can be seen throughout the rest of my platform. But that's the term. I think I learned about that when I was like 14, and that is something I've always used to describe myself. Even though I think I've voted Democrat in every single election I've ever voted. So
Right.
that explains the perhaps some people call like schismatic political terminology and sort of the principles behind it.
And that's just it. Is I like when we can sit here and we can actually like differentiate the terminology, because I like that radical Republican. Outside of the bad parts of that, okay, yeah, the good parts of it, that's pretty much how I feel too. Just like there's things about the Democratic Party that, yeah, no, there's some really bad aspects of it, but there's also a lot of good ones. So I'm
Oh, of
sitting there
course.
going, I'm a combination of the good aspects of both, but not the bad one. And then I turned out, oh, the purple party's already taken. Damn it, can't be the purple party. Otherwise, I'd be the
No,
purple party. Um,
I
but
call
it's
myself purple in one of my recent videos. So I am running in the
yes,
Democratic primary, but this is like a core part of my political philosophy DNA.
but that's just it. Is we're at the point where people are choosing a established party because it's easier for them to get on the ticket and the ballot, simply because
Mhm.
if you run independent, you need 42,000 signatures just to get on the ballot, and they all have to be listed as independent. If they are not
Yep.
listed as independent, if they are listed under any other party, they don't count.
Yeah.
How screwed up is that?
The strategic lane. So when I first thought about doing this, so I began, like I said, I didn't start 2026 thinking I was going to run for president. This was a surprise to me too. But eventually just got so fed up, and I got tired of feeling hopeless. Really, is what it is. I got tired of feeling mad every day when I woke up and I looked at the news, and I got tired of feeling powerless. And so I started to think, okay, who could I back right now? Like who is probably going to run for president? Because we all know who's likely going to run for
Right.
president. And who could I throw my weight behind? Who could I throw my plans behind? Who can I throw my agenda behind to try to get them to the White House? And I looked at the list and I went, okay, well, doesn't seem like a lot of people who actually I could reasonably trust to see this agenda through.
Right.
And then I started looking at the opening for outsiders, thinking like, okay, well, maybe I can find a better outsider. Um, and I did some strategic analysis. I have a background, I have a minor background in economics and game theory, and I started looking at the game board, and I realized, well, I can't find anyone, but I have a decent shot myself. Uh, um, so that's how this all started. Um, when it comes to the actual strategic mechanisms of how this works, I came to the idea that I needed to run as a Democrat simply because it's the only lane available. Since I announced my campaign, because I thought I was the first person announcing for to be a presidential candidate. I learned that
Right.
there's others. I learned that there are people who announced as independents, and I looked at their platform and I looked at sort of their viability because I thought, okay, well maybe I should just shut this all down and join them. And unfortunately, after those sort of passes, I realized no, that lane is entirely non-viable. It's going to require about $1.4 billion to to successfully mount a presidential campaign. That's the projected amount we think that the Harris camp did in the last election. So with inflation and also just with the stakes, I project we could see up to $1.7 billion plus needed to win the presidency. And obviously, we the people, as much as we want to break away from the two party system, it's going to be nigh impossible to do that. But with party help, we can do that. So I thought of a different strategy. Let's capture the parties, right? Because the Democrats are just as upset about the situation as we are. Um, let's be real. Only, it's projected that somewhere around 14% of the Democratic Party is happy with their own leadership, right? Like we are in a critical leadership crisis in the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
And I don't want to call out any specific party leader. I think that'd be one, like not very constructive, but two, I think, there's a lot of nuance about why we're feeling that way. Um, but when you sort of tabulate that all together, it shows, okay, there's an outside chance for us, the people, to get a new platform for 2028 and to have that be endorsed by people who all collectively agree we can't do this and are experts at doing this. So we need to part with them to find their expertise as long as we maintain the authenticity of our agenda platform
Mhm.
through and through. So my six core promises are not getting reneged on in any aspect. What I put out as my agendas, the concepts behind those, we're not reneging on a single part of that. We are allowing some kind of agnosticism to when it comes
Right.
to things like universal healthcare. I commit to universal healthcare. Realistically, I'm very agnostic about whether we do Medicare for all or single payer platform. I see advantages to both sides, and I'm willing to work with the thing that gets Americans health coverage they can afford. I am not an ideologue. I will never be an ideologue. I am going to fight for the thing that pragmatically works, that is validated to work, and that we can achieve. Um,
Love
as a
that.
core promise of the campaign. So, which is why we're running for the Democratic Party. When I looked at the Republican Party, I saw an entire system captured by Trump Vance loyalists, and we can't break through that kind of field, but we can take the opportunities we have. And like I said, I've been a lifelong Democratic voter to try to change a party from the inside because it's right for change. Like I said, 60% of the country wants the majority of our policies. That number is much, much higher when we're just talking about within the Democratic Party
Mhm.
itself.
Sorry, I'm paying attention. I'm also making notes while we're talking because I love this.
No, I was
So,
giving you a moment. I also saw, I think my good friend
yeah,
Rob
Rob is
is
going.
talking in the comments
Yeah,
too.
he goes, the left has right, the right has right answers. We want to bridge the two together. We want to help trip the ship of politics to help the country become number one. No, I'm right there with you. And more than anything, right now let's stop the ship from sinking. It's let's patch the holes, let's get the water out, let's get it stabilized so that way we can start rebuilding it and actually make it a freaking battleship again rather than this little thing that's going down the stream going, I hope we don't sink.
Exactly. We're in a stability crisis, right? That's the language I choose to use. I think a lot of people are getting comfortable calling this an affordability crisis. And I think that is important because it talks about where the pain point is. But I think when you expand the scope a little bit larger, we're in a stability and legitimacy crisis. It's not just that we can't afford everything, which is a live or die crisis by itself, right? When we say we can't afford anything, we're talking about human lives being lost. I think that's extremely important for us to drive through. But the entire political system has become unstable, right? We have a political violence and brinksmanship in a way that I've never seen before in America, at least haven't seen for a very, very long time. So this is beyond concerning. And then again, I have lost faith. We have lost faith in the idea that the people we elected to solve these problems on both sides of the aisle are doing so in good faith, right? That they're representing what we want to see, and that they're following through in the promises and the language that they're using. That's one reason I'm very tight with my language. That's one reason I'm very careful with my language. I want to make sure that when I make a promise, it is a real promise. I want to make sure that it's
Yes.
like, hey, this is something I support. This is something I can only support. I can't promise. Um,
Yes.
Now, sadly, that does hide some things. It hides the fact that I think we will get universal healthcare in my first term.
Good.
I am almost certain about that. But again,
This
to be honest to the American people, I can't promise it outright.
Well, that being said, I have talked to enough people who are running on the federal level at this point to know that there are so many people who are pushing for healthcare for all when they get in there in the first 2 years that I don't
Hmm.
think it's going to be that hard to get it as people might think. I think it's going to be a lot easier to obtain, especially when you have so many people who are wanting that. When you have polls done and 80% of Americans say, no, I want health care that's affordable. I don't care if I have to pay $100 a month for it, but I cannot afford $6,000 surgeries. I can't afford this. Like my second neck surgery, they tried to charge me $34,000 for it after they approved it, saying that,
Ooh.
oh, you can't have a disc replacement done at a spot where you had a fusion. Well, no shit, Sherlock. The fusion was done at C5, C6 in March of 2020. The replacement was done at C6, C7 in November of 21. I ended up having to call them. They denied it again. Then I called them back and they said, oh, well, the doctor's notes don't match the surgery. So I called the doctor's office and they told me what they had put down for the notes. I'm like, no, that's exactly what matched. That's the surgery. So I had them send it to me and then resubmit it with the updated date and then send that to me again. And then I called them back and they still denied it because, oh, it's not right. So I'm like, okay, cool. Got my lawyer involved. Then now we have to do an external review. And I called them back and said, we submitted it all. And I'll tell you right now, if you don't approve it, we're suing. Why? Because you guys cannot keep doing this. 10 days later, I got a note in the mail saying it was approved. The second I brought up a lawyer and said, I'm suing because I have my rights and there was nothing here that should have been denied. You guys are fucking around with it, trying to just not pay out the money because you don't want to. That's illegal. But here's the
Yep,
thing is
it's
people have to
deplorable.
understand about insurance
Deplorable.
companies is you have to triple check everything you receive from them because they will overcharge you for everything. They will purposely miscode things. So instead of paying $20, you're now paying $3,000 because they have decided that, oh, well, we did this and this and this and this, and they're not paying for that. Well, did you make sure you coded it right? Because I had that issue where I went to the ER because I was having an anaphylactic reaction. They put it in as a general allergic reaction. I was almost about to pay $8,000 for that visit until I called them and said, no, I had an anaphylactic reaction. Like I was on the floor, like unable to breathe. They had to give me steroids and this and this. They're like, oh, we miscoded it. So I had to call the hospital. The
Yeah,
hospital had to
miscoded.
fix it, had to resubmit it. Then I had to call the insurance company and let them know. They resubmitted it, and then they only ended up paying $27 for the entire visit. But you have to go through those hoops because they don't care. They're not going to double check. They're not going to triple check. You're just going to have to pay whatever you pay, which is why you have to make sure that whatever you're getting charged isn't, it's actually valid. That's part
Yeah,
of the
healthcare
issue
is
that we
broken.
have with the healthcare system.
It's broken. It's entirely broken. So I used to
It's
work in
broken.
healthcare. So for the past 3 years,
I
I
work
worked
in
in
healthcare.
clinical research. Yeah, and we both have seen the insides of it, right? We both know
Mm-hmm.
how just it's. And the worst part is, again, we're talking about a system that basically no one wants, right? This is something that your doctor is constantly losing sleep over. They're losing
Yep.
sleep over the fact that they cannot just simply give you the care they want to give you. Remember, these are
Yep.
people who went through hell. Medical school is not fun.
No.
To be able to help you. That is every doctor I've ever met. and they feel powerless. They feel entirely powerless, burnt out, tired. There's not enough of them, and there are systems in place to restrict the amount of doctors that there are. That allow for these that further allow for these insurance companies to price gouge, and to play extremely dirty tricks. There is a reason why a lot of Americans have found inspiration in the let's say the case of Luigi Mangione, right? Like this is something that is beyond the breaking point. So I most certainly agree. I think that we are going to see universal health care in our next administration. Right, that is something that I am very confident in, and it's so painful not to be able to promise it outright. Only because I've seen what I saw what happened with the ACA and the people who are fighting against the ACA, and I want to be extremely careful about what I outright can promise I can do for the American people versus what I see as extremely likely. Only because I want to make sure that the hope we provide is hope with receipts. It's hope with real thought out processes behind it. It's a hope that is not in vain, right? This is
It's a
not
hope
an
where you
exercise in
don't just
vanity.
have concepts of a plan. You actually have, listen, I have a
Yeah,
plan. Here's how we're going to go about achieving it because we can't do anymore. Well, I have concepts of a plan. Uh-huh. And you don't have a plan. You have no clue. You don't know what you're doing. Why are you fucking
mhm,
around with it? Like
exactly.
seriously, we the people, and I say this, we the people cannot do this anymore. We're at our
No,
breaking point. Luigi is a perfect example. Do you know there's been 20 more of those since then? 20 more
I can't
CEO
comment on that.
shootings. So this, and mind you, this was as a few weeks ago. So it's continuing. It's continuing. And unfortunately, it's the United Healthcare CEO was just the start. I was watching an interview with the CEO of Goldman Sachs, who sat there and even said, yes, you need to tax the rich because the poor are starting to rise up. And if we don't, well, the rich, their lives are on the line. And mind you, I do not support violence. I would rather us figure out a very nonviolent way to go about making change because you know what? I really am a pacifist. I prefer words and actions over violence and blood. However, I also understand that sometimes the tree of liberty has to be watered with the blood of patriots and giants. It is what it is.
Thomas Jefferson.
However, the vast majority of us would rather sit here and be like, listen, can we do this peacefully? Can we just vote people out and vote people in and do it the right way without having to take more lives? Because that would
I
be
believe we
great.
can.
That would be fantastic.
I would
That's
not be
what I'm
doing this if
hoping
I thought we
for.
couldn't do it. So,
Yeah.
and I've said this openly to my team, and try not to post videos on this because I don't want to engage in fear mongering. I think there's enough things to
Right.
be stressed about, but I
Yep.
really do think that we are in a critical place in our country's history. I think that you talk about violence against the elites. Let's also talk about the fact that workers are burning down warehouses. Right, this is
Yep.
something that is just happening. Right, this is not an
Yep.
endorsement.
Nope.
We have people burning down warehouses, posting about it, and explicitly saying the reason is because we cannot afford to live in this country anymore because this is not a fair deal. Right, that is something that is just happening. So I think we're in an extremely precarious position in American democracy. I think people have lost all hope that we can change things, and I think that's when people resort to violence. Um, my father was a pacifist. Very importantly, I am not. I think my professional career probably speaks to that. But I want to avoid the kinds of violence I've seen abroad in my country. Right. I think that we should try to avoid violence every step we can when it is not the most pragmatic and effective solution. And I believe we truly have a better solution than us descending into chaos.
Yep.
I don't think that the rest of the leadership that we have to look for in America has that solution. I don't think that the established classes and their plans, incrementalism, I don't see it as working. I think we have evidence to the contrary. And that is my concern. My concern is that, I call myself an American radical. Like that is really descriptive of my political philosophy. I use a lot of words. I use democratic socialist. I use radical Republican. I am an American radical. And I think that's the thing that connects with most people. Um, and that is not to say that I have some kind of entrenched dislike of moderates. I don't.
Right.
Most of my friends would call themselves political moderates. Instead, it's just that when we talk about the problems we're looking at, when we talk about the solution sets that have data behind them, that have evidence behind them, the case is becoming much more persuasive that one, we need to predicate our solutions in justice and equity, which when we talk about political philosophy is radicalism, right? And
Hmm.
then two, we need to take much more bold action, which when we talk about the vernacular term radical, that's what that means. We need to go to the root, right? The radix of the problem, and we need to solve the problem at the root. And again,
Hmm.
I think some places we can look towards more measured incrementalism, right? Let's talk about like energy, right? That's like an amazing place we can look at incrementalism. So I will take some hit from this right out the door, but it's in our policy platform and it's something I support. I support the building of more molten salt reactors, right? I support next generation safe reactors. I support photovoltaic energy. Yeah, I support what could be called a better version of the Green New Deal. But that's also something we have to be incredibly measured in, right? For a lot of pragmatic reasons. One is that a lot of Americans don't trust reactors. That is something
Right.
that we see in data, and feelings are mixed about this. So this is one of the few points I can't just say like, "Hey, look, everyone's on board with this." The data is actually really complicated. Um, but also not just talking about sentiment, we have to talk about like pragmatic knock-on effects. If I was coming up here and saying we have to get rid of coal tomorrow, that is throwing a lot of situations in chaos. That is
Hmm.
endangering American lives.
Hmm.
Not that coal doesn't, but it's also endangering economic realities of people who work in these industries, of regular working Americans who work in these industries, not just the billionaires. So this is a place that we can, talk a little bit more about how we end up transitioning and real established transitioning plans. Um, Rob, yeah, you're right, and I'm not sure me and Rob if we've personally talked about nuclear power before. Yeah, nuclear power is complicated. It has a lot older traditional reactors are not something I support. Right when we
Yeah.
talk about
Like
the nuclear
Chernobyl,
power
we,
that
we don't need a
my
Chernobyl.
3 Mile Island,
No.
right? Yeah, we call those like fast breeder reactors, hard
Yeah.
water reactors. Those are reactors that were partially designed to create weapons, right?
Right.
They produce weaponized plutonium as a byproduct in some cases, and
Yep.
that's one of the reasons that the American industry went with those kinds of reactors. We also have different technologies. We've what's called molten salt reactors that use thorium salt and are physically impossible to melt down in certain configurations. So these would be the safest energy on planet Earth, and it's using a resource that we have in abundance. China has already made huge strides in it. We have a lot of American engineers and innovation who want to do it, but they're just not being enabled because of larger structures and the lack of incentives. It's extremely expensive to start. Um,
It is.
so again, this is one place we can look at incrementalism. Is one, making sure that we can establish a mandate on it. I'm not going to be ever putting forward something by diktat. This is something I always want to build consensus on, and I recognize that my own mother is one of the people who does not like nuclear reactors and is incredibly suspicious of this idea. And so we have to be realistic and sensitive to that with people. Um,
Right.
because disagreement is something that we should solve maturely and not just try to descend into shouting matches with.
Far more
Photovoltaics,
damaging.
yeah, go ahead.
So he's going coal plant byproduct produces far more damaging radiation than nuclear plants. So you're not wrong. So I have a cousin.
Hmm.
He is a nuclear physicist. He went to
Oh,
school
cool.
for nuclear fusion. He is one of the people who would work inside of one of those nuclear reactors. Now,
Tell him to call me.
the ones that he works in,
Hmm.
I absolutely do actually support those. My only concern, and I've told this to him, my only concern is the toxic waste byproduct and what they're going to do with that. Now, I do know they've
Certainly.
made innovations on actually using that as a secondary source of energy and converting that into more power. They've made a
Hmm.
lot of strides on that, which cool. If we could do that, that's great, because my main concern is what happens when we have a storehouse full of toxic waste and something happens and it gets into the ground. What do we do then? Like, there's a
I think
lot
that's
of
a real
what
concern.
do we do if these happens, and those are the concerns where I have. It's not necessarily the plant or it itself, it's the byproduct of the plant. What do we do with that? Because that's going to kill us. So it's
Yeah,
one of
I
those,
think
if
that's
you
a
have
rational concern.
concrete answers for that, doom, you got me. If you could tell me what you're going to do and you have a concrete plan on how you're going to handle that waste, you got my support right there.
Well, the lovely part is that I don't need to be convincing you. This is something that we can throw to back to engineers, like your family.
Right,
This is something. There are technologies that are being explored that are safer than waste in terms of the byproducts. And cannot create weapons, right? Even some configurations of the molten salt reactor, we know that we can recycle through the system until they no longer have that kind of forever dangerous waste. Now, I don't want to overclaim here. Right, this is a problem for engineers to solve.
right,
But I can say this: is that my administration will not support any kind of energy transition that, on the margins, has a greater risk of error than the current technologies. So that is one thing we can do
cool,
right now that make sure
good.
we are all on the same page. Is that we want to go safety first. We want to do clean air and water first, right? When we talk about incrementalism, some places that we don't want to again sort of go too boldly with, and I think
Right,
that we have a lot of consensus on, is something about artificial intelligence. Right, this is something
right.
that we should be
Yep.
talking about incrementalism on. We should be talking about slow, measured rollouts of artificial intelligence systems. This is often a conversation that comes up when we talk about clean power because, hey, these data centers are going to require a lot of power. That's something a lot of Americans are
That's the next
feeling
thing I
right
was going to
now.
bring up is let's talk about those data centers and how much power they take in. Let's talk about some of the hyperscale ones being built in Indiana that none of us want, to the point where how representatives, politicians, I'm not going to use the word representative. We'll explain why. The
Sure, yeah.
politicians in our state are having their houses shot up because they're taking the offers for the data centers
Hmm.
and nobody in the state actually wants them. We were
Yep.
driving to Illinois to pick up something and we drove past this huge, like, it almost felt like a football stadium kind of being built with all the lights in the middle of the field. And I looked it up. It's, oh no, that's the $10 billion meta complex that's being, it's a mile and a half long. It's
Yep.
a mile and a half long. And I'm sitting there going, I live less than 150 miles from that. So all the waste and debris that is going to be generated from that, with how the wind goes, it's going to blow right over my home. Well, that's
Hmm.
fantastic, because we talk about the waste to the water that it's going to have. We talk about the pollution to the air, because like in Indiana, we are coal and natural gas heavy. That's all we have in our state. We don't have anything else. I have gone through and I've actually, like, this is the sick part. I have gone through and I've figured out all of the utilities in our state, both energy and water. They're all owned by BlackRock, every last one of them.
Mm.
AES company was just bought by BlackRock for $33.4 billion. It will be settled by the end of this year. That is AES Indiana. That's a good chunk. Like three-fourths of Indiana is just that one spot. Then we have Duke Energy, and then we have this, we have this. And then everybody in Indiana has American Indiana Water, which is a subsidiary of American Water Works Company, which is owned by BlackRock and Vanguard, which, FYI, if you go down a few steps from the top tier, you're going to see all the board members start overlapping with all these different companies. Yeah, they're all owned by the same person.
I'm just going to say one word about that and then transition back to AI. Antitrust.
Yeah. Yep.
Like we cannot have a society, and this is not me going after venture capitalism. This is not me going
No, no,
after
this is
private
just
equity
me
per se.
stating a fact of what I've learned
Yeah,
over the past 2 months.
we have to make sure there are separations and real competition when it comes to not just like American services. Like there should be not be competition per se. There should be stability per se when it comes to American utility services. But
Hmm.
when we talk about any one company that generates as much fear and as much vitriol, we need to be extremely careful to make sure that they are not. Uh, Creating an environment where people cannot, one, compete against them, and two, that they do not have outside share of power that silences American voices. Right, that is what's really important. Now, about AI data centers, I fully support Senator Sanders and Representative AOC's push to pause the building of new AI data centers.
Yep.
To be clear about like where I'm coming from in this background, so I went to NYU. I attended NYU Center for Bioethics after my undergraduate degree, and principally I was looking at the ethics and policy behind artificial intelligence and
Hmm.
genetic editing, and then I did health equity. Sort of as I was getting into it, I got very, very passionate about it. So I've been thinking a lot about artificial intelligence before we start talking about LLMs, before we start talking about ChatGPT. This was something that was, one could say, a hobby horse of mine. And I am not, hostile to the use of artificial intelligence systems in certain contexts. I have a good friend,
Right.
and she has made a platform that uses an LLM to help patients who are suffering from brain tumors find clinical trials that they qualify
Oh,
for,
that's amazing.
which is something I worked on at UCSF. And it is extremely hard to do sometimes, simply because there are
Mhm.
lots of Byzantine and arcane systems that have to be interacted with and are very hard for time stressed physicians and non provider patients um, to understand. So there are great things we can use uh, artificial intelligence for. Right, there are incredible things that can help
Mhm.
people, but there are huge
Sure.
risks, and the risks are real. And one of those is environmental, right? Like one of those is you should not be worried about your town, your state, building data centers that one make it impossible for you to afford utilities, two have real impacts on your health and wellness, and three that we don't have a lot of transparency for in terms of our representatives allowing their construction, right? Like this is moving too fast. And when we use the term incrementalism, I think this is one place we need to look at it in society, right? We need to think about the fact that a lot of these and some of these are private public partnerships in ways,
Mhm.
when we really look at sort of the definition of that, like we need to be thinking very careful about how these data centers are being built, how companies are at times maybe strong arming certain municipalities
Mhm.
in getting these things constructed, and we need to push back against that. So I fully support Senator Sanders and Representative AOC's bill to put a pause on it. I would have done something perhaps a little bit more staged, but I recognize where they're coming from, and hey, it's what we have on the table, and I'm willing to work with it. That's my general governing philosophy. We don't. I'm not asking for 100% alignment on any one issue.
Right.
I'm asking that we meet at maybe a nice little 80%, and we're able to work together on core principles together. So yeah, I internally in the campaign, we have policies about AI. Anything I write in terms of like my own written content, I'm an author
Right.
professionally. I don't use AI for that. My first book had nothing to do with AI, has
I
no AI
love
involved
that.
with it.
Thank you.
My second book will
Thank you.
not. Yeah, of
Thank
course, of
you.
course.
Because
Art
I'm
in
not
the same.
sorry when I say that when it comes to the creative endeavors, when it comes to music and art, painting and writing and fortunately crochet cannot be made by AI. Thank God for smart fingers. Okay, like there's
Yeah,
all
yeah,
these
yeah.
little art things where I have seen somebody go, well, I'm an AI music content creator now, and I'm like, no, no, you're not a music producer. You're
Mm,
just using AI to create what you think is music. That's not how music works. Music is an expression of the soul, and it truly is something. The same with writing, because I'm an author as well. I love writing. Um, you would never see me use any sort of AI to come up with the stories. In fact, I've never used ChatGPT. I don't have any of that stuff on my phone. My kids are banned from using stuff like that. Why? Because my kids have sat there and had conversations with it. And yeah, my daughter has broken it, but I didn't need to sit there and tell her, well, it sat there and told her, I'm going to go kill myself now. I'm like, you need to unplug that thing and turn that off. Like that's possessed. But she broke it. She broke it to the point where I wanted to go commit suicide. I'm like, well, leave that to my daughter.
yeah,
But
that's
she was from
that's
that
funny.
point on not allowed to use it because she understood, because it was saying stuff like that. Where I told her, I said, but honey, what if it told you to go hurt yourself? I said, would you have done it? Well, no. I said, but it still bothers me that you have a device that might actually tell you to do that. And if you're ever depressed enough, you might listen.
Yeah, and we have cases like that. We have cases where there are allegations that AI companies have created dangerous products and put them in the hands of people who are suffering mental health crises, and it's led to tragic outcomes. I'm not an expert on those cases, and I'm not going to comment on those cases. But
That's a
oh
blanket I
yeah.
made. AI cannot create that. AI cannot make that. Thank you. Okay.
So hopefully it will stay that way, but unfortunately, we're getting to a point very quickly where we have to be fearing about labor and automation,
Yep.
which is something that I think I'm a little bit uniquely qualified to talk about when we talk about like other candidates. It's one of the reasons I decided, oh no, I really need to run. So one of those reasons. I don't want to pretend I'm the only person to ever think about that either. Andrew Yang and his campaign was
Yep.
very focused on this issue as well. But when it comes to how we respond to that, right now there are security robots that look like something out of science fiction walking around with police officers. Right now, I walked down the street yesterday and I saw a drone being used in a SWAT operation. Now, this was hopefully a piloted drone, but we have the technical pieces now. We have the technology to have that it fully in control of agents. And
Yep.
the all of the most accurate predictions for the labor market suggest the same thing, that artificial intelligence in terms of automation and robotics in terms of automation are going to display something like 40% of work. And this is going to be transformative of our society. And unless we have a say in how that happens, we are going to see the end of the American dream and the end of the American Commonwealth.
Yep.
And I think this is also going to affect physical labor far faster than people are prepared for. Um,
Yep.
I got into a conversation on my page with someone who was very hesitant about this idea that automation can replace physical labor this quickly, but we're already starting to see it. You know, there is a embodied android walking at the White House, right?
Yep. Figure
With
three,
the
I
first
think is the
lady.
name.
Dude, yeah. So you know, when we talk about labor protections, it's not just about the things we all know we need. It's not just about the right to unionize, right? It's not just about protecting the right for bargainer for labor bargaining power. It's not just about making sure that there are agency standards and more laws protecting worker safety. It's not just about protecting worker pay. It's now also making sure that automation does not simply create a system where individuals can no longer afford to work with their skills and can no longer provide for themselves or their family. And so, you know, part of the this is something that touches everything we've talked about. It's something that will touch everything we talk about moving forward because this technology is that revolutionary. And one of the reasons I decided to run, as I said, was simply because I was afraid. And looking at the people who are likely going to run and likely to announce to run, that they are not prepared, that their teams are not prepared, that their strategies are not prepared for what is about to happen. So that has become something a huge focus of my campaign. It's something we've tried to build into all parts of our agenda. My economic agenda seeks to shift how we tax people in this country. It seeks to shift tax focus away from the working class and on to aggregated wealth and automation. Are you excited about it?
Yes, because here's the thing is this well, this is something that we talk about is we need to tax the wealthy their fair share. And by that I mean like
Yeah.
if you are making $200 million a year in interest and living off of that, that should be taxed. The
Oh,
interest
most
that you're
certainly.
living off of should be taxed. Why?
Hmm.
Because that's what billionaires do. They invest all their money because here's the thing is they might look rich, but reality, most of them are actually cash poor because all their cash is tied up in investments. So they have the
Hmm.
appearance of having all this money when in reality they're living off the interest of their investments because their interest generates their investments generate millions upon millions of dollars. So they don't actually need to have an earned income anymore. So they're only being taxed on their earned income, which is $150,000 a year, when in reality they're making 200 million in interest.
Yep. Yep, yep, yep. Yeah, I mean, Elon Musk has made that case. I don't know his personal situation. I'm not an accountant. I'm not a forensic accountant. So and I don't know him personally, but he's made that case that like, hey, no, actually, I don't have a lot of cash on hand,
Yeah,
and that it's all tied up into other vehicles. So yeah,
yeah.
and you know, I think there is a lot of data to reflect that there are situations like that, and that the situations are more common than people think. And so
Mm-hmm.
I just want to cut the Gordian knot, and I want to tax capital directly. My plan is to shift the concentration of the tax policy away from labor income and on to standing capital. And what that looks like to me is one accrued capital. You know, sometimes we talk about this as a wealth tax, but I think it goes a little bit deeper than that. And automation windfalls, right? Taxing. I sometimes will say this. You know, we need to tax robots and dynasties and not workers. And I think that
Yeah.
that is the most powerful case is that we should be taxing, making sure that tax systems are fair, that we have a fair share tax, and that fair share tax is onto standing capital reserves that have been only enabled to get so hard because of our work and because of the American Commonwealth, because of government programs that have enabled these businesses to succeed. Um, and that therefore belongs to, in a sense, all of us. It's our
Yep.
commonwealth. It's we have built the roads, we provide the food, we provide the medical care, we provide the lights being on and the plumbing working, and that is the pretext to why we ought to be taxing some of this more, both from a moral standpoint and then pragmatically. As we discussed, automation is going to make work look extremely different than our tax code is designed to support. And we need to start shifting the focus onto accrued capital. Again, this
Yep.
is not a novel idea.
Nope.
Andrew Yang had a very similar one. He wanted to use something called a value added tax. I think some of the math doesn't actually support that as a model moving forward, although I have a huge amount of personal admiration for him. I think he's just a nice guy. But yeah, I do a little bit deeper. I predicate a lot of my work off of Thomas Piketty when it comes to this model of taxation and how we ought to
Uh-huh.
be restructuring our tax code and our tax base moving forward in a more, what we call scholastically, more perfect economy, where there's a lot more information systems embedded into it and that it moves differently than we've seen in the last, well, all of human history.
Right.
And so that I think is important, both from a moral standpoint and just simply from a pragmatic one.
That's awesome. So we're going to jump in and grab some of the questions real quick. So going
Sure.
back to Rob, he goes, how could you influence change? Oh, how could you influence change how neurodivergent people get proper medication and help?
So this is actually something I'm very passionate about. So this is something I wrote about a little bit in bioethics. One argument I have is that we need to start. We talk about people like Kennedy, right? We need to stop looking at neurodivergence in the light of a disability we are trying to plan around or remove in society. He's come under a lot of fire in hearings for extremely inflammatory statements he's made about people who have been diagnosed with ADHD, particularly young Black Americans diagnosed with ADHD. But also, we need to understand that when we talk about disabilities, especially cognitive disabilities, we're kind of talking about social models, and that society has been constructed a certain way that makes some of these neural phenotypes disabilities. But that doesn't necessarily mean there is something wrong with people who are, aneurotypical. And I think that we need to start shifting the public conversation around that. We need to make that sure that Americans who are, have attention deficit designations in their phenotype or autistic designations of phenotype who are still able to function safely in our society. We need to ensure that we have designed society in such a way that empowers them to, and that it's not simply a system that they have to fight for a place in. It's some place that they are naturally home in. And I think that's important from a moral standpoint. When it comes to disability rights advocacy, we intend to take that more seriously than any other administration in the past. More again from a moral standpoint, but again, thinking pragmatically, there is a lot of talent that is being locked away and is being denied simply because someone has a medical diagnosis of a neurotypical phenotype. There was a great comedy segment on this recently where Nathan Fielder went and got a pilot's license, but he broached the point that people who are diagnosed with autism are not permitted to fly in America. So is that a fair policy structure to be made? Right? Is that something reasonable or rational, or is that something that is biased in how we see the differences of neurophenotypes? And is something that we need to talk about in the conversation of disability rights. So that's one major way. When we talk about care, we need to make sure more resources are being predicated towards care for people who have neurotypical needs of care. Talking about more availability for medications for those who have been diagnosed with ADHD and are seeking medications, because not all people do. And again, ensuring that systems, both government systems, but also public systems, are designed in such a way to not be exclusive towards individuals who have anortypical phenotypes. I think that's incredibly important. We need to shift the conversation away from one of pejorative disability and one towards making a more inclusive society. And that is something that I intend to accomplish by agency mandates and by working with partners in Congress to move the ball legislatively forward with. It's something I'm very passionate about. I have neurotypical people in my family. It's the vast majority of my friends, and at this point, looks like a lot of members on my team. So it's something that is very close to home to me, and I intend to take extremely seriously. I think he also has a question about other energy
He did.
sources and
I was actually
transportation.
going to add to what you were saying before we moved on. So, on the 11th, my daughter has the first of her 3 appointments to be diagnosed with ADHD. On the
Mm,
24th of June, I have the first of my 3 appointments to actually officially be diagnosed with it because we all know I got hit by the tism stick really hard when I was a kid. Just never got an official diagnosis. But as I've gotten older and I've gone through all the list of all the symptoms, I'm like, oh, that's me. And I see it all in my daughter. And I'm literally telling people, she does this, and this. That's me. That's the whole ADHD thing in girls when they're growing up. I said, because here's the thing is, it's so hard for them to diagnose women, whether they're kids
mhm.
or they're adults. Here I am, I'm 42. I'll be 42 in July. I keep saying I'm 42. I'll be 42 in July. I'm getting ready to get my diagnosis. I will be 42 by the time I actually have it because it takes months to get the process going and then it takes months to actually get the diagnosis. It's not something where in 2 weeks we can go get the diagnosis. It's like, no, I made these appointments back in February. But it's that hard to find somebody who is licensed to actually diagnose you with those illnesses in this state, period. Why? Because everybody's moving out of the state because they have made it so hard for doctors to practice in America, period, regardless of what field they're in, to the point where they're leaving the states where they have the restrictions, which hurts the people who are in those states, and they're going to the states with the less restriction. And in those states with the more restrictions, well, because they're losing all the doctors, they're closing down all the rural places because we don't have enough doctors and staff to staff them. So now you have to drive 80 minutes to the closest hospital. I hope you don't die on the way.
Yep. Yep. The desertification of rural clinics is something that we have thought a lot about. It's something I personally have thought a lot about because I was working at UCSF. It's an extremely connected system in Northern California. It's one of the best hospitals in the world. So we were looking at the problem from the outside because we can just look over at the Central Valley to see a lot less accessibility. It's something we can look at near peer states around us and see, oh no, the second you start getting into rural America, there is not just accessibility problems. There begins to be medical infrastructure problems, especially with closing clinics. There are lots of things we could do at the federal government to help alleviate that from a executive standpoint. Probably the biggest one and the one people are most excited that I've talked about is actually not something I can achieve unilaterally as executive, but is a legislative package. I am proposing that we add a new arm to the military, that we arm a pacifistic and humanitarian focused, infrastructure focused arm to the military called the United States Service Corps. It is going to be composed out of military professionalism, but its entire use case is going to be non-combat. That will be part of its core charter and structure. I saw this neat case when both when I was in the military, my unit before I got on deck, right before I got on deck, to that unit helped with the Haitian earthquake and the disaster relief and assistance in Haiti. That was something that is so clearly seen inside the military. If you talk to folks inside the military, you will hear them more often talk about humanitarian missions than you will hear them talk about combat missions and security missions. So we have a need case, not just for that internationally with the gutting of USAID, but we have a need case for that here in America, where we have critical infrastructure gaps that are the result of mismanagement, the result of federal and state level mismanagement and the knock-on effects of poorly designed policy, like you pointed out. where we need more doctors, we need more nurses, we need more healthcare staff, we need better infrastructure in this country, right? We need a national rail system. We need the we need a centralized and professional core of engineers to help assist us in energy transition. And there is not a single agency, there's not a single administrative body that has that power right now. And so we need that. Um, my answer is to develop, look at the professionalism we already have, look at the education we already have, and develop something called
What
the United
happened
States
there?
Service Corps.
I don't know. I don't think I invited you as a guest.
You did.
Oh, I don't know
I
what
don't
I
know
Jan,
what
is
was
did.
that
going
you?
on. Sorry.
No,
I've
you're
never done a
fine. It's
live
just
before. Can you get me out of here?
Colin, on accident. Um,
Hello, hello.
Hi.
yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't realize I
It's
invited
all
you. If you want
good.
to drop, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
We can get together at some other time though and talk about the whole late diagnosis club.
Right?
Wait, Jan, is that you?
Yeah, it was.
Okay, there we go. That's so funny.
Yeah, I don't know what
There's
I
a
did.
lot.
I'm sorry. I was scrolling and I must have accidentally hit the wrong thing.
Live TV. So yeah, when we talk about like how to fix desertification in rural areas, there are old and tired ways, policy devices that you're going to hear other candidates try to push. You're going to hear a lot of, well, we can incentivize things. Well, we can try to build this into the budget and then have that budget cut up a million different 10 ways. And then we can look and try to turn to private industry, which will just lead to a further privatization of the problems we're looking at. And while I love partnering with private industry, I am a decentralized market person. Um, I don't think that is an appropriate answer to certain problems. And I say that with empirical evidence on our side about what
Yep.
happens when you over privatize industries. Uh, so,
Firefighters, anyone?
the developments of something like the United States Service Corps that can provide some of those industries support and can partner with localities with the professionalism and subject matter expertise that we already have in the United States military and start transitioning some of our more hawkish policies into more dovish policies in practice, not just by words, not just by saying we want to make sure that we're using American ingenuity just for peace. We actually want to do it. This is one way we can combat rural clinic desertification in a way that no other administration has ever proposed. So,
I
like I
like
said,
that.
radical solutions are needed sometimes.
And here's the thing is but that's just where we're at. I had somebody that I was talking to who, I thought he was running, but he wasn't. I'd watched a few of his videos. I sent him an invite and then I'm like, oh wait, you're not running. And we had a conversation. We laughed about that. He goes, he would, but he doesn't think the world's ready for a heavily tatted, bearded vet with a mouth. And so, you know what, honey? The world might not be ready, but we're ready. I mean, because
Yeah, tell
otherwise
them
the
to come
world's
talk to
not
me.
ready for a heavily tatted, woman with a mouth, aka me, as an amateur political journalist trying to help change the world. The world may not be ready, but I'm ready, and the people are. The people are ready. And that's where we're at is, sure, the world might not be ready, but the people in our country are. We are ready for a change. We are ready for anybody who's willing to stand up and go, hey guys, I got an idea. Can we try some of this? Like, I have ideas. I have plans. Let me put them on a silver platter for you and just hand them to you. Be like, can you take a look, please? And then maybe give me your vote. That'd be great. Because that's what we need to do is we need to swap out the old guard and bring in the new guard. And that's literally where we're at is we have to get rid of the people who've just been standing there. And this is where I use the term representative and politicians. So we have representatives, and that's who I'm interviewing. You are a representative. You represent the people of America. You're not a politician. You're not bought and paid for it. You don't have a big super PAC behind you. You don't have APAC money. You don't have any of that. You're doing it without that kind of influence. Why? Because you don't want or need that kind of influence. We don't want or need another person that is beholden to Israel. Why? Well, have you seen what's going over in the Middle East? It's not pretty right now. That's a lot of what I do. Let's see. So, as of right now, this is my list of all pro-Israel APAC.
Oh, lovely,
Like,
lovely, lovely. Have you checked out
I've
APAC
just
Tracker?
been. Yes, I have gone to APAC Tracker. Not
Yeah,
all of these are on APAC Tracker though.
yeah.
That's why I'm trying to pull every name of every PAC or donating company that is part of that group to have a comprehensive list to give to people. They're like, hey, FYI, if you're not already aware, in addition to that, here's the list of the rest of names that you need to be wary of. Because there's a lot of them in Michigan that people may not be aware of. They're smaller, but there's a lot of them. There's like 15 in Michigan alone.
Let's talk a little bit about APAC. Actually, one of my 6 pillars. So I have 6 core campaign promises. These policy pillars that I will never renege on, and that they are designed around executive power, so I can unilaterally accomplish them. 3 of them starts with prosecutions, right? So this is where we're talking about 87% of the country wants to see prosecutions fall out of the Epstein files. We have mechanisms of actions to do that, and also legal guardrails to make sure this does not turn into political revenge, right? I am not interested in throwing people in prison personally. I want to restructure a constitutionally sound Department of Justice that is going to follow evidence and is going to follow through with the confidence of the American people. And we are starting to build those mechanism guidelines out right now. So this will be something that begins day one of my administration. We're going to be prosecuting illegal actions by Immigration Customs Enforcement. We all saw what they were doing in their surge. We all saw them commit heinous crimes against American citizens. This is something in the public record. This is not something we need to gesticulate at vaguely. So we need to hold them to account, and we need to also hold the politicians who got them there into account. Again, through a restaffed and remandated Department of Justice and professional prosecutors, this will not. I will always resist any kind of political revenging happening. We need to follow the law. We need to show that the American Constitution works. Third is anti-corruption. We're going after the corruption and grift that we see right now in across the government, both from people who are related to individuals in the government, but also with companies that have made billions disappear under suspicious circumstances. Again, I don't want to point to any one individual. I don't want to sully the waters here, because we want to do this in a way that is both transparent but also impartial. We want the evidence to speak for itself, because we all know it's there. This is common sense. I don't need to be throwing individual names out there, because the evidence will speak for itself, and it's something we already know. So, the first 3 pillars are all about essentially prosecutions and restoring rule of law. One of those things that falls in between that is APAC and FARA. So I want to, using FARA, using national security devices as well, ensure that we do not have foreign capture by representatives and politicians. We want to make sure that our politicians are representing their constituents, and not dark money, and certainly not foreign interests. And right now, I cannot speak with confidence to say that APAC is not a foreign influence campaign on the American people. We have seen time and time again, even with this war in Iran, reports that our decision makers were influenced by the actions of the current Israeli government. That is deplorable, right? Americans should have accountability from their representatives, from their leadership. And we should not be acting unilaterally for moneyed interests from foreign actors abroad, especially not the current administration of the Israeli government, which I want to speak entirely unequivocally here, has supported apartheid against the Palestinian people, and have mounted military campaigns, which I personally consider genocidal in their interest. I support unilateral stopping of weapon transfers and stopping of unconditional support to Israel until apartheid ends and until regime change from the Netanyahu government is carried out. I support a Palestinian right of return, and I support an equitable Israel for all, and not an apartheid state, ever. That is my stance. When we talk about APAC and FARA, again, I because this is a campaign promise, I want to be very precise about the language I'm using. we are going to do a FARA pass, and we are going to do a national security pass to ensure that we have a government that is not in a state of constant capture. That is my promise to the American people vis-a-vis not just the situation in Israel, not just the apartheid against the Palestinian people, and about the illegal colonialism of the West Bank, not to mention Gaza. But also making sure that Americans have faith that their government represents them and not the interests of the Israeli people, not the interests of the Russian Federation, not the interest of foreign groups who should not have a say in how our democracy is run. My own history with Israel is really complicated. I've participated in exercises to shore up Israeli security as a United States Marine. I served with Israeli Marines. One of my Marines was an Israeli Jew. I have a lot of love for the people of Israel in my heart. I have a lot of love for Palestinians. My first nanny, my only nanny, was a Palestinian immigrant. This is something that is a lot of my campaign is structured the way it is because these issues are really deep to me. They cut deep. We talk about neurotypical needs or aneurotypical needs. That is reflective of my family and friends. When we talk about rights for the LGBTQIA plus community and in fighting against the horrifying oppression happening against them, those are my friends. Those are my family. When we talk about,
I'm part of that community.
Yeah,
Like
my partner is it's insane that we have to see what's going on happen to the people that we love. When we talk about the horrifying human rights violations perpetuated by the current administration under Israel, I have blood in that fight. Americans deserve more accountability. We deserve the knowledge that our government is acting in an ethical standing and is not in a state of constant capture, whether that means big business and monopoly here, or whether that means moneyed foreign interests who have infiltrated our representational government. That is a promise I can make to the American people that I will fight that every day of our administration. And we have some tools, we have some mechanisms right now to start carrying out that fight.
Love that. No, I really do. I love that because I have watched since the 90s. And I'll put that because that's when I was a teen. That's when I actually started paying attention to the world around me because I had to. I hit middle school and then high school and became an adult. I have watched how slowly but surely the American people's confidence has been eroded away in our representatives and here's where I was originally going with the whole representatives. So representatives versus politicians.
I get it.
So I tend to cycle back tangents, gotta love it. We have representatives that are there to represent first the people in their district, then their state, then their country. That's what a representative does. They are there to do, the social work. They are there to be a public servant. That's it. They're there to be a public servant. Then you have politicians. Politicians are the issues because politicians are not there to represent the people. They're there to represent themselves and the corporations that line their pockets. That's who they're there to represent. Let's be honest about it, because if we made every politician wear a jacket with their sponsors on it like they were NASCAR drivers, it'd be very telling.
It'd be a very colorful Congress and Senate.
And I think it'd be very damning in some cases. Very, very damning. Very telling. But
I concur.
That's just it. I want somebody that has nothing on their jacket, or it's just a bunch of mom and pop shops around the country going, hey, I donated $1,000 because I really believe in you, and that's all the money I can spare for anyone. Dude,
that'd be my dream.
That'd be fantastic.
So let me talk about a little bit how we do a financing of the campaign. So we are a grassroots movement. I have put this out publicly. I will not accept AIPAC money. This is specifically because of how they've operated in American politics over the last 20 years. We've seen a slide from representing a segment of the American people to being captured by a foreign government. That's my personal belief. And that is one reason why I draw a hard line with that. When it comes to PACs in general, look, I'm running to win. I'm running to fight. So I will accept all legal PAC money that I can, because we are going to need upwards of $1.7 billion to win. The way my campaign is going to handle that is that we are going to develop an accountability and transparency tracker where we have where there is a troubling donation in regards to conflict of interest with a specific policy and highlight that. Friend of the campaign, Rob, he was answering questions here or asking questions earlier. He is spearheading that right now. We are trying to get our website in a healthy enough state that we can do that. Because we understand that we are going to have to accept a lot of money from a lot of different people, and that there are optics and implications behind all those things. One, I want to ensure that we are not reneging on our policy as we develop it. Right, our agenda represents the principles that our campaign are built around: principles of justice, principles of beneficence, principles of equity. But that we are going to be constantly adjusting our agenda as we lead up to the primary from expert responses, right? So I'm contacting professors, doctors to review, industry experts to review all of our policy angles from their field. We are not building this from consulting. We're building this from an expertise standpoint. But as a result, that's going to shift. So we have a problem, right? We have a problem where I am willing to accept money from almost anyone because I believe it's in everyone's best interest that our platform wins. But we're also, editing our policy in real time. So I want to be transparent about how we're doing both those processes. I want to make sure that we call out any conflict of interest. Some money we might have to add to the rejection list simply because there is too much of an implication of a conflict of interest that we will have to forego that benefit. That's going to be a sad day. It's going to be a very foreseeable day, right?
Yep.
So that's one way we're moving forward with it. When it comes, that's our general guiding philosophy when it comes to PACs. That's specifically about APAC. We're not going to become an APAC political establishment. Period.
Good. And that's a big thing. Like I said before, is we need to get the iCountry out of our politics. We need to get, honestly, we need to get money out of politics. Let's be honest about that. I know we're not
Certainly.
quite there yet. That is hopefully something that happens over the next decade, because right now we have to take the baby steps in order to just get the ship righted. And it's let's just get people into position that actually want to work for us. Like, that's step one. It's the easiest, simplest, hardest step to do, is just get people in position. Because once we get them into position, it's like, oh, let me tell you, I can tell you exactly who to go to on whatever level in order to get some of this shit done, because they are already on board for it. They just need people to work together. And it's almost like we need the coalition in the government of people on the Congress level, the Senate, and the president actually working together to make some of this done, instead of everybody butting their heads and things constantly changing and nobody being able to get anything through. So 6 months later, we're still waiting on the same 3 bills.
And we're building that right now. You're right.
Yep.
You're entirely right in the diagnosis. We're building that right now. We have candidate partners who've already signed on to the platform. Again, I don't ask for purity testing. I don't ask for entire alignment. I am reaching out across the aisle. It's not just Democrats that we're talking to. We're talking to independents. We're talking to Green Party people. We're talking to a certain amount of Republicans as well. We're asking for around 80% alignment, right? We're asking for a workable consensus because, again, I will not rule by diktat. I'm not a ruler. I'm a leader. My governing philosophy is that we are going to be working with our partners in Congress to achieve the most ambitious vision ever. And I truly believe we can do it. I think the data, again, is on our side that this is possible. So we are building our coalition early. It is composed of a lot of people who are like me, who are outsiders, but it has some people on the list who are considered to be establishment politicians. Again, we're looking for alignment. We're looking for people who are able to diagnose the problem that you just laid out, see that we need a fix, and agree with a clear and radical path to fix it. That is what we ask for, and that's what we're pursuing. That's what we'll have in 2028 when we take the White House. So,
and that's what we need.
Most certainly. I see a comment about. I see a couple questions. Yeah. Did you want to hit them?
So, I've been jotting them down to make sure that we get them. So the first one I have jotted down is the question about, so what are your thoughts on flock cameras and drones?
Okay, I have lots of thoughts. So I can talk about my thoughts all day. Let's talk a little bit about policy, right? My policy implication about flock cameras and let's say private or governmental use of drones. The first thing that comes to mind is safety. The second thing is privacy. I believe Americans have a unenumerated right to privacy. Predicated off the Fourth Amendment, but also just an enabling right to be able to pursue your happiness, right? You cannot pursue your happiness when your privacy is being constantly invaded. You cannot pursue your happiness when you are a subject of a informational police state. So that is my personal predilection towards how I interact with these things, right? Is that my chief concern is privacy. There are legitimate cases for government use of surveillance systems and for drones that act either in surveillance interests or in some kind of direct action instance. Like let's be frank. But I think when it comes to information gathering, bulk information gathering on the American people, I don't find a good case to support that American security is made improved in any kind of way by the use of things like flock camera agreements in municipalities and in the federal government, and mass drone use. I don't want you feeling like you're in some kind of dystopian state in America where every one of your moves are watched. You cannot be free if you are constantly surveilled. So, that policy cuts across a lot of different things. Like I keep mentioning security because there are real security implications of systems that allow for some level of surveillance. We live in an age where go ahead.
I was just saying Ford 2027, what they plan for their trucks.
I find that repugnant. And don't worry, we will be working on some. Let's say this. I don't want to give away too much of the game right now. There will be working groups in my Department of Justice that are specifically primed to look at invasions and pervasions on citizen privacy by certain companies, and suing on behalf of your rights when this comes up. So that is one immediate mechanism. I'll try to not comment too much on individual companies right now.
Right.
One, I think that would be inappropriate, and two, we're radically transparent here, but we do reserve a little bit of right to be strategically mindful. I'll put it that way. Yeah.
And I was just literally saying the name because I saw it yesterday, and now I'm like, seriously.
I can tell you my personal opinions on that. I find that repugnant, frankly.
Yeah. And it's just it's disgusting. It's one of those. I'm not sorry. Listen, if there's an emergency and I have to get in my car and get to the hospital, and my heart rate's going to be elevated, but I'm still safe to drive, let me drive my car. There's an emergency. My heart rate's going to be elevated, period.
I think one of the biggest resistances I've always had talking to what's considered like traditional Republicans, right? Republicans who are part of the Republican Party, on the democratic socialist aspects of my platform is the idea that there will be some kind of nanny state that comes out of it. Right? The idea that this means there's going to be government overreach. I am militantly opposed to government overreach. Right? I want regulations to make the game fairer. I want regulations to make your life and your family's life safer and healthier. When it comes to pervasions on your privacy, I want to get away from the Orwellian state, whether that means from centralized government or from private companies who make it impossible for you to escape them. A remote company someplace else, whether it's the manufacturer or another one, in my personal opinion, should not be able to unilaterally cut a service they provided you, right? They should not be able to turn off your car. Either the government or a private industry, in my personal opinion, right, should not be able to monitor you 24/7 and then sell that data on your lived life as a commodity, right? I believe that is wrong. I can tell you what our Department of Justice will focus on: predicated on existing law, predicated on your constitutional rights. That's as much as I could talk about outside of a specific agenda line item on it.
No, and that's fine. This is just not necessarily like nitty gritty specifics. This is a conversation to start getting to know you
of course,
what your
of course,
ideas are. We
like I said, I have to be very precise
to the date.
I just always want to be very precise, right? We need to show that, hey, we've seen this, but we have receipts. This is something we've thought about.
But that kind of shows us like listen, guys, it's on, like it's on the table. We know about it. It's being discussed. It's just now we have to figure out, understand, like there's 100 priorities. We have to figure out which one of these 100 priorities actually needs to be in the top 10 and which one is a little bit lower down on the list. Doesn't mean it's not a priority. It's just we have to affect the ones that are going to affect the most people and do the most change first. It really is the
certainly.
truth. Because if we can affect something that affects 80% of Americans in a positive light, that's going to do so much more for everybody than something that's only going to affect 10% of Americans.
My old mass sergeant Ricky Gould, he would always say that hey, if everything's a priority, nothing's a priority, right? And
Exactly.
that's something important. Now I take people's privacy a huge priority in the same breath, but again, we develop systems to deal with those priorities, right? We delineate and delegate that as a systematic approach, so it's not just the president from the bully pulpit fighting every single issue. That becomes a stronger team-based approach. It allows us to pull in coalition partners. It allows us to empower coalition partners as ownership items. um, we have a lot of different tools in that toolbox to ensure we elevate priorities in a dynamic and consistent fashion. So definitely on my mind though. That not just talking about one or two different technologies, but the idea that we need to be fighting against digital enclosure and digital capture, like across digital technologies, across
Mm-hmm.
information systems on the internet, making sure that we have a neutral, safe, and impartial internet environment for people to have the free exchange of ideas, and is not becoming, closed pens of certain apps that are constantly monitored. We need to make
Right.
sure Americans have the freedom of speech, and part of that freedom rests on the ability to speak and the ability to maintain your anonymity when necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I'm Shadow Kitten. That's my handle. Why? Because I have a very unique name and I don't need people tracking me down and showing up on my doorstep because they decide they like me. I've
Yeah,
already had that happen
exactly.
once in my lifetime.
Exactly.
I don't need it to happen
Oh
again.
no. Oh no, oh no. Yeah, please never. Please never. Um
Yeah,
but yeah,
but
so that's my general
that's
feelings
where
on
we, the people, should be allowed to have that level of anonymity if we choose to. Because it's one of
certainly.
those, for me, that's a choice because I'm trying to protect my family while still doing something that affects change positively in the world. On that note, that's why I have to be like, yeah, but at the same time, I can't let everybody know my name because people get angry at people for just giving others a platform to speak
Hmm.
because they don't want change. They're afraid of change. I don't understand why they're so afraid of change when it's changed for the right reasons, but hey, I get it. People are just afraid of change because they like the status quo. They can deal with the status quo. Change is chaos. Change means I don't know how to deal with that. I'm going to have to learn how to deal with a new normal reality. Why would you not want a new normal reality that's better than what you have where you're thriving instead of struggling to survive?
Um,
Um, if
oh,
you're,
sorry, I
I
think I
was
had
to
a
say, if you're talking, there you go. You unmuted yourself.
there we are.
But let's go to JC Anderson, who said, what would you do about the business monopolies that have taken over our country, like media corporations and food companies?
All right, here we are.
And
Apologies on that.
energy. We'll throw that in there because there are monopolies in energy now.
So antitrust, right? Antitrust is going to be my bread and butter in a lot of ways to achieve things in the agenda items that Americans really care the most about. I am against all monopolies and monopsonies, right? We need to get rid of the idea that company towns are a real possibility. And that's what we're starting to see. We even have some groups out back in California who are trying to push the idea of company towns again in a very frightening idea, a frightening new reality. Um, near where I'm from. So with that idea, with that being said, things that we can do is rely on already extant antitrust laws, right? To again, with a restaffed and remandated DOJ, we're going to have. I'm not a lawyer. We're going to have a lot of lawyers in our administration. They're going to be very very busy. And to pursue monopoly cases where they cause market danger, right? Where they stifle competition and where they cause labor capture and they do not allow for individuals to be able to sell their labor on a fair marketplace that fairly and repays them for some kind of life that they can sustain, not just strong arms them. And we're gonna take that general approach to all industries. Whether it's about revisiting some of the deals that are happening under this administration that seem, at least to the public eye, like they might be perversions of justice, that they might be some kind of corruption. Again, not making specific claims, but using commonly available common sense evidence and looking at these. I think there's strong cases to be made that a lot of companies need to be much, much smaller and distributed across to develop a much healthier landscape all over. Now, I know a lot of people in this conversation kind of want to also bring in lobbying, right? When we talk about like monopolies, we talk about lobbying, we talk about like how big business captures. That, I'm going to be extremely frank, is a lot more of a surgical nuance to that conversation, because oftentimes there will also be lobbying groups that are just like teachers unions, right? And how we end up attacking the problem of monopoly capture of our government needs to be something we work with in Congress to do, right? We need to develop salient laws that are able to identify when things are clear interests for constituents and when things are a system of capture where monopolies are trying to, or just even large independent corporations who don't represent monopolies, are trying to capture the legal processes that allow them this runaway success they've had. Not every app on your phone should be X. Not every app on your phone should be Meta, right? These giant companies should not represent every part of you. We shouldn't have one family owning half of mainstream traditional news outlets in America, right?
Yeah.
We should have a diversity of food and agricultural suppliers. The fact that we don't have as many family farms as we did 10 years ago is an extremely alarming thing. And my administration, in the agricultural section of our agenda, will fight for family farms and work for subsidies that support them. We want to make sure that we have the safest food on the planet, but also that the people who work in these industries, the people who provide this food for us, they're able to do so in a place where they are not being constantly butted out by larger entities. So across the board, we are not just pro-labor, but we are also anti-monopoly and anti-monopsony in every sense. We will break up oligopolies. We will make it so that American business can be a place where decentralized markets thrive. I support worker co-ops, and we will take steps at the federal level to help empower worker cooperatives to make sure that individuals own their labor and have say in the market. We want to make America a place where it's a union of neighborhoods again. Right? We want to make America a place where it's not these faceless, massive corporate conglomerates we interact with who try to make us serfs or peasants. We want great and powerful companies, right? We want companies that are the best at what they do in the world. We want to enable business success, but we don't ever want that business success to mean oppression for the rest of us. And we don't want that business success to be outsized political influence ever. We want a strong foundation with no limit to it, but we have to make sure that foundation is there and that the limitless nature of that success does not turn into limitless oppression on the American worker.
I love that. As a small business owner who has dreams of, well, I'm a licensed massage therapist. I work part-time for a chiropractor and I run my own business. I do chair massage events. Like I was just at one where it was 3 days long, and in 2 weeks I go to another one, and 2 weeks after that I have another one. So it's part of what I do. I make good money doing it. But
That's
here's
awesome.
the thing is I also know my time doing it is limited. So my ultimate goal is actually to set up one-stop health shops across the United States, multiple in every state, where you can go and you can find your normal doctor, you can get a massage therapist, you can have a physical therapist, you can have a dermatologist, you can have a neurologist, a spine doctor, this, all the things you could need in one location. So you don't have to drive 45 minutes one way and an hour and a half the next another way to go see all your
That's
doctors.
awesome.
I'm somebody who has 7 different specialists I see. The farthest away, I have to drive 2.5 hours. Still worth it. Why? Because they're one of the best in the United States and they happen to live in my state. So I'm going to go see them. But that's just it, is I want to be able to offer that to as many people as possible. Find those people who are good at their jobs and get them in a position, in a place where the vast majority of people can go see them. And we'll work with the insurance companies if we have insurance still, or we'll do the single payer, or we'll do this. But the whole goal is to still bring affordable quality care to you, period. across the board, regardless of what you need. Everybody's working together. We share the information between one, office to the other office. So you don't have to tell your story to 10 different people. Instead, you say it once and it's all there and they can discuss. This is what you said. Okay, okay, okay. Perfect. We have all the information we need. Now we can get you going and help people get to where they need so they can live good quality lives just to spite their illnesses, not despite them.
Mm-hmm.
And I say this as somebody who has 4 diagnosed autoimmune disorders, as somebody who during the winter should qualify for a disability, but I don't because there's 6 months of the year I'm able-bodied and 6 months of the year I'm not really able-bodied. But I don't qualify because, oh, well, you can still do this and you can still do this because I've learned how to heal my body and I'm not bedridden. I don't qualify for disability, despite the fact that I can't work 40 hours a week, even on my good days. I can't. I cannot
Yeah.
sit in front of a computer for 40 hours. I found the perfect career for me, which I work 15 to 20 hours a week. I do about 12 to 15 in the winter as a massage therapist because I can stand up, I can move with my fibromyalgia. It's actually the best job for me because I don't sit too long that my back starts hurting. Instead, I stand up and I move and I do my body mechanics and I actually stretch and I do my things while I'm working on people to keep my body able and going. But during the winter, I can't do 20 plus hours. There's no way my body can handle that because of everything else that goes on in my body because of the rest of my autoimmune disorders. But it's one of
So
those
yeah,
like, yeah,
you
I'm
hit a couple things
SOL.
there. Yeah. So you had a couple of the things. I'll start with the first one, and then we can talk a little bit more about like plans for disability in America and like how we need to revisit letting people who are disabled work more without losing their benefits. We not changing the kind of benefit classifications they have because they found ways like you have around these kind of problems. The first is that to back to the point about your small business idea, we need more business optimism like that, more worker run and worker organized business optimism like that in America. One of the reasons that the word business has become so toxic in America is because we have these giant multilateral conglomerates, these giant concentrations of capital who've bullied us and have crushed workers so much that there's almost a distaste on the left for the concept of money in general. And while I don't love money, I'm broke, I'm poor.
Yeah.
We also understand that it's a way for us to organize resources and that it's a way for us to organize wealth in society for people and causes that deserve it, right? So yeah, we want to make sure our administration is able to empower more small businesses, that we want to make sure that there are the tax credits in line to support more small businesses. And that might also mean removing some of the tax credits for larger businesses that the system of corporate socialism that they've set up, where it's, hey, socialism for them and capitalism for the rest of us. We need to shift that back. We need to shift it back so that we have more small business longevity in America. More about like, to your point about, hey, you're in a double bind where if you make certain improvements in your life, you will lose benefits, or at least if people with disabilities or long-term health conditions make certain improvements in their life, they might lose benefits. But also, just this dangerous borderline region of finding ways to survive and finding ways to be subsisting also disallows people from benefits. We want to get rid of that system. We want to let disabled people test work part-time, save modestly, and keep healthcare without being punished by drop off cliffs in their benefit system. We want to raise those borderline windows so to allow more testing for that, to allow more people to qualify for benefits that they need that impact their life that they simply are not getting because they're not quote unquote like disabled enough. We want to make sure that the systems in place are actually moving with evidence and science and not with some kind of puritanical sense of, no, you can work a little bit, even if it's in pain, you should work. That's insane. And that's not what Americans want. Yeah, so we have to make sure that we're trying to at the same time raise benefits, update asset limits, and lower marriage penalties. We need to stop. We need to stop the system that has been designed to more or less push and keep people with disabilities and long-term medical conditions into poverty. A lot of that is going to be tools that we have to, again, work with Congress to achieve. Some of that we can do internally with agency guidelines and mandates. That is going to be a line by line item that we are going to have experts actually go into and figure out where we can tweak that from the executive podium. But that's something that's a focus of ours. As our understanding of medicine continues, and we see this a lot with psychiatric medicine, we're going to find out that more people should have qualified for disability benefits in some way that we just see as an invisible disability right now. You mentioned fibromyalgia. Fibromyalgia was essentially that for until very recently, where there was, a lot of active conversation in the medical community about its very existence, which I find offensive. My
Its
aunt suffered from
validity,
it
and
really
I
heavily.
do, because
Yeah,
it's one of those. I've had the pain right here in my shoulder since I was 7 years old, and I'll be 42. Okay, it's there. Don't tell me it's not there.
yeah. My own aunt, she was a 20-year Navy veteran, and she suffered from fibromyalgia for years and years and years. And
Hmm.
I remember her telling me doctors laughed at her when she tried to bring this
Yeah,
up, which is
yeah.
horrifying. Hey,
I was
even
told
Lyme
it's in my
disease,
head.
Lyme disease, which is exploding across the United States right now because of climate change. That also was laughed at for a variety of reasons by different medical professionals. So,
Hmm.
you know, when we talk about disability benefits, it's not just about dollar amounts. It's not just about the cliffs that we need to modulate to make sure people are able to maintain their coverage. It's also about the fact that what we consider disability is going to shift as our medical knowledge expands, and that is something that we have to have our disability benefits administration prepared for. That is something we have to have Social Security prepared for. And we need to start writing those kind of rules into existence now because, frankly, a lot of them don't.
Yeah.
So that is something that we're focused on, not just about ending subminimum wages, not just focused about home and community based services as a right. We're talking also just about the extant services right now need to be improved while we work on better next generation services that we need and that frankly Americans deserve.
No, and we do. I have worked since I was 16. I am not lazy by any stretch of the word. Ask my husband. Like the exercises and the things I've put my body through to make it strong enough to even be able to vacuum my house, because I started 9 years ago. I couldn't stand for longer than 2 minutes. I couldn't walk down to the end of my driveway and back. I couldn't sit in front of a computer, not without pain either in my neck or my lower back. I had to choose which spot of my body I wanted the pain in that day. And now here I am, 9 years later. I'm a massage therapist. I went back to school at 35. I've done all these things to improve myself by going to physical therapy, and I was in it for 4 years just to learn how to use my body properly because of the pain I was in. And people have to understand is if your body is in pain, don't ignore it. That is your body telling you something is wrong. You need to go to the
Certainly.
doctor. And if the doctor says to listen, don't stop until somebody finally listens. That's what it took. It took me 10 years and 10 doctors to find somebody who did not laugh at me and tell me it was all in my head. Instead, she goes, okay, well, if you say you're in pain, you're in pain. Let's find out why. We need more of those doctors who just listen and don't say, oh, nothing's wrong with you. Just go take an antihistamine. I'm on a daily antihistamine and this is still going on. That's not the issue. Trust me. But that's just it. Is my entire life, whether it was because of the chemical depression that started when I was a kid. Turns out I was bipolar at 5 years old. They never knew that.
Mm,
That was back in the 80s. I didn't get a diagnosis until, well, a few years ago in my mid 30s. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, it's not this, it's not this, it's not this. The official diagnosis is bipolar manic depressive without psychotic or schizophrenic tendencies,
mm.
which is good because my aunt and my great grandma both had the schizophrenic tendencies. Yeah, I dodged a bullet with
Oof.
that one.
I
But
would
then
say,
to
I would say.
hear then to hear the director of our health system want to talk about taking people off SSRIs and putting them in a wellness camp. My dude, do you know what will happen in that wellness camp? Tell you
Yep.
right now, the women will band together and the guards will never see the light of day again. That's exactly what's going to happen.
The idea of a wellness camp makes me physically ill. Like the pseudoscience that the current administration has tapped into disgusts me from a professional standpoint, a
Yeah.
scholastic standpoint, as a human being. The we ought to be constructing policy predicated off two things. the will of the American people. We have a constitutional republic and empirical data, right? We should not be creating mythologies out of science and pushing pseudoscience. We should be following evidence, and where we don't have enough evidence yet, we should be pursuing it. I'm not some kind of technocrat. I won't pretend to be a technocrat. But how we basis our policy feedback loop should always start with reality, start with what we can verify about reality, and then build off, pragmatic understandings of policies that work as mechanisms of actions, from starting from A to B, not talking about, some kind of camp system of any kind.
Right.
Immediately makes me nervous. One, because again, we're starting to delegitimize the lived experience of people who are otherwise abled, people who are aneurotypical. We are starting to other them. And we've seen what happens at the end of the story. It was not that long ago that we had lobotomies in America as medicine. It is not that long ago that institutionalization had disenfranchised hundreds of thousands of people living with mental health illnesses, right? It has not been that long ago since the fires in Auschwitz burned for people who were considered, less than, both from a racist context and from a disability context. So we have to be extremely on guard about pseudoscience like that. We have to be extremely aggressive against pushing back on pseudoscience like that. And we need to have medical professionals in jobs that require medical professionals, not weird influencer hacks who happen to have a famous last name and are
Right.
pushing pseudoscience in the American government.
And that's the problem is, we get flagged for misinformation when we're sitting there going, no, all I'm doing is correcting what they're telling everybody because that's not right. That's not okay. That's the pseudoscience. That's the misinformation. But then you have people who eat it up because, oh, well, our president said, or, oh, well, the head of this said. It's like, yeah, but do you know their background? Do they actually have the qualifications to be in that position?
Yeah, we are
I
going to
have more
get rid.
qualifications than they do.
Oh, I think most Americans do. We're going to get rid of the argument from authority in my administration. We're going to appeal to experts, and we're going to have experts. Some of those are going to be non-traditional experts, right? I intend to seek out people who are working class experts as much as I can. I consider myself a working class expert, right? I don't hold a doctorate. I don't hold an advanced degree. I think that you don't necessarily need to. I think that the idea that the education system has been predicated to this academic gatekeeping is dangerous. But that doesn't say that academia is not something we should be pushing forward. It's not something saying that we shouldn't rely on academia. It's simply saying that we need to broaden our horizons about what expertise mean. It means that we need to, as a government, as a society, we need to endorse a kind of ontology like verificationism that allows us all to come to a consensus about what is real and not. That is probably your best weapon against misinformation, is being adults and looking each other in the face and talking about, well, here's a way we can actually prove we know what we're talking about, prove we understand the problem, and start looking at evidence objectively. I think doctors, nurses, pharmacists, and everyone in medicine might actually know things. I know, right?
Right.
Such a shock. Holy crap. It's almost like they're the people we go to when we have problems in their fields. Maybe we should listen to them.
Just maybe.
Just a
Who
tad.
knew?
Maybe when scientists tell us that human-caused climate change is a threat to millions of lives in America, we should listen to them. And I take that very, very seriously. That, like I said, our administration will treat technical experts as sources of truth. At the end of the day, how we employ those will be by community consensus, will be by consensus and will of the American people as constituents. But we have to agree at least on what the facts are. We have to agree on, we should look in empirical data and not fantasies about how the world works. We need to trust evidence that has been verified, is not doctored, and we have to have systems that allow that. And I think the working class can do it. I think we have more than enough technical acumen to do this, and I think we have enough champions to push it through.
And in my opinion, the working class is exactly where you should be getting those experts from, because they are the people who have been doing those jobs for the last 20 to 30 years. They know what they are talking about. Perfect example. I
Precisely.
have been massaging since I was 6 years old. I promise you, I know what I'm talking about when it comes to your body. Like, hands down, over 30 years of experience. Okay. I studied it on my own in middle school and high school, and now I have a degree in it. Like, I know what I'm talking about. So that would be, well, you would want somebody like me to massage your body and actually tell you this is what you need in order to not feel the pain in these areas, because that's what I'm an expert at. One of the ladies I've interviewed, Amanda, she worked for the federal government in their water um, environmental division, testing water. She would be somebody where, oh yeah, no, I would absolutely go to her because it's what she has a degree in. It's what she's done for almost 2.5 decades. Like, she was
Mhm.
1 year shy of having her, vestment in the federal government, and chose to take the buyout and walk away rather than staying for one more year because she
Wow.
couldn't do it under the Trump administration. She walked away. But she would be somebody where I would turn to her. Or I have another person who, his job, he's an environmental scientist. He works for a company where they go out and they test the ground where there's been chemical spills, and they clean it
Mm.
up, and then they retest it, and then they tell the government to come out and test it to make sure that it's good. That's what he does. That's what he does for a living. He'd be somebody I'd go to for, okay, if we want to talk about cleaning up our environment, cleaning up the land, you'd be somebody I'd go to. She'd be somebody I'd talk to about water. We'd have the experts right there. We just need to go, hey, I'm tagging you. You seem to know what you're talking about. Let's get you in here,
Certainly.
and we're going to have you work with those other three people who are also environmental scientists, and see what the four of you can brainstorm together to see if we can't come up with some sort of consensus that this will
Mhm.
work for us. That's how we do it,
Exactly.
is we take the experts in those fields who have been doing it for years, who that's all they know is that thing. Like, they have a little information about all these other things, but they know this thing. Why would we not want them to be the ones helping us lead? It makes sense to me.
Precisely. I think it makes sense to everybody. A lot of my platform can be summed up by common sense commonwealth, right? Like, like nothing we're proposing, again, is, I use the term radical a little bit tongue in cheek. Nothing we're proposing is extreme by any means. Like, this stuff is predicated on expert opinion. This stuff is predicated on things we all see. And that's, I think, what makes this movement, one, it verifies to me that my vision is a real vision that we can all see as a path to the White House, right? This is
Mm-hmm.
something that most Americans want. This is something most Americans are asking for. It's something I'm prepared to do for the next 10 years of my life, because it's the best way I can see returning stability and legitimacy to the country I care about, the country I served.
Yep.
Um, I mean, you carried one of the strongest arguments about why someone asked me if I was what qualifies me to become president, because I've never held an elected
Yep.
office, right? And I think there are lots of answers we can have about that. Some of them are a lot more snarky. You can say I have a spotless track record, but I think one argument that is really salient when we talk about expertise is I've seen the things people care about the most in America. I have had a ground's eye view of how that. So what that really means.
Oh, we lost your audio. Okay.
Hey, can you hear me?
Okay, there we go. I can hear you now.
Yeah, sorry, I'm getting a call that just keeps pressing through every single thing I have, and I think it's screwing me up. I probably actually have to go soon, but I've been having so
Yeah,
much
so
fun.
I was getting, I'm
No,
like,
it's
oh, it's almost 6:30.
I know we've been talking, just it was so much fun. Thank you so much for having me on.
Of
No,
course.
it's just that I was at the Strait of Hormuz, right? I saw exactly what people were talking about when we talk about the policy effects of foreign posture. I have worked in security operations all along CENTCOM, the place that all of our eyes are at. I have worked in cancer centers. I have seen the struggles of healthcare, and I've seen the successes of healthcare, and I know where the money needs to go to be the best value add. I have worked directly in artificial intelligence policy, and in I've worked in fintech. Like, I've seen how these policies actually interact with Americans. I've seen how they actually interact with our lives. Um, that is something that we can all put some names in our head as we move into this primary. We know that there are going to be politicians who have had a lot of experience leading, who can't say the same thing and can't say the same thing about their policy. And if you were to put a gun to their head and ask them where their policy comes from, it comes from consultants. We can safely say it doesn't. It starts with me, it goes to experts, and that's how we collate it.
It comes from lived experience, and that's
Comes from
exactly
working
it.
class.
And I love that. Your qualifications quite literally just come from lived experience, and that's what we need. Is you've lived what the normal American citizen has. You've been to war, you've served, you've done this, you've done that. You have walked a day in my shoes, even if he hasn't been in my literal shoes, but you could take a step back and be like, I can understand her point of view and why she feels the way she does based on what she's lived through. That's what we want, because a lot of people, they can't do that. Our current president couldn't do that. Our last few presidents, Obama probably could, but the rest of them wouldn't understand what it's like to have to decide, okay, who's going to eat the meal that day and who's going to skip so the kids eat 3 meals that day. That was
Yep.
us last summer. My husband and I were alternating who ate that day. And then there were some days where he went 2 or 3 days without eating, so I would eat because I was getting to the point where I was losing too much weight. But we've been there. Most people in politics right now cannot say that. I'm trying to find more people who can say, yeah, I know what it's like when growing up and mac and cheese and hot dogs, and when reality it's a poor people food and we didn't know that. We thought we were eating like kings that night. Yep. Then you turn around and you're like, yeah, no, we were poor. Our mom just never told us. Her favorite part of the pizza was not actually the crust.
Yep. I've lived that life. The mom part of the pizza and crust, that actually is my real experience. No, I've been
It's mine
institutionally
too.
homeless before. Like it's I've had hard knocks. I have student debt, right? Like even with the GI Bill, I have student debt because I need to take out debt to survive, to stay housed, because my family had nothing. We couldn't do it. So like that is a real reality. I understand. I am not from a silver spoon clad. And I hope that is something that we can see more of across the political spectrum, not just in my campaign, but have American representationalism come back in such a way that Americans really are represented by the people in the hallowed halls. I think we are living in a moment where that is possible. We have, Graham Plattner in Maine. We have Zoran over here in New York City. We're seeing this all over the place. We have Ethan Wutchaluk down in Maryland. We have real Americans
I've
standing
interviewed
up.
him. He is so much fun.
He's amazing.
Ethan.
He's amazing.
I'll have him back on. God, what day is it? The 13th.
Amazing. He is part of our coalition to help save this country against the privations of ICE and to help build a real mandate when we have the White House so that we can actually get universal health care on people's platters, so we can actually fix the problems that people see and fix them the way we all know need to be fixed. No more stalling. We're going to do it this time. I'll see it
No,
through.
we are. And again, I love it, and I love the fact that you name dropped Ethan, because he's the one I bring up when I talk about the person I've interviewed who's going against a billionaire and a multimillionaire. It's him. That's the one
Ethan's
I'm
great.
talking about.
Absolutely great.
He is, and
Stand-up
we all
guy.
know
Love
he's
him.
got an uphill battle both ways with no shoes on, 100-pound rucksack, and hope he's not bleeding out. Which is why let's get him out there, as many people as possible, because it's people like him who are actually going to bring the change to areas where change needs to happen, because that's a seat he's fighting for that has been in the hands of the oligarchs for, well, the last at least 10 cycles.
Yep. And we have a chance to break it.
Yep.
We have a chance to cut the Gordian knot. We have a chance to break the wheel that crushes us every day. This chance is real. The data supports it. The empirical evidence supports it, and the people support it. So we're going to make it real. The next 2 years are going to be the most worker-powered 2 years in American history.
I'm genuinely excited for it. I really am. I'm excited for the change. I'm excited because of all the people I keep talking to, you and Ethan Sweet LeMay, and I have Blythe tomorrow. The more I hear from you guys, the more I talk to you, the more excited I get for our future, the more hope I have. And all I can do is hope that that passes on to everybody else, because listen, guys, genuinely, follow him if you're not following him. He wants to fight for you on the presidential level. This is fantastic. He is somebody where his platform, his policies, what he wants to do for us is derived from literally walking a day in our shoes, from knowing what it's like to not be, to being homeless, to having to watch his mom alternate, oh yeah, no honey, you eat all the rest, I'll eat the crust, to, mac and cheese and hot dogs being a glorious, dinner, to, here we are modern day, and we're seeing gas prices skyrocket, and we're seeing grocery prices skyrocket, and things that used to be, a bundle of a pound of bananas used to be 69 cents. Now it's $1.79.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make sense. That math doesn't add up. And we're going to fix it.
So, but that's what we need, is we need people like you and me standing up and saying, hi, hey, over here, just for 5 seconds. Can you listen? Listen to him. Just give him a minute of your time.
And we appreciate it.
He's got a lot of fantastic things to say. So, Colin, I will be having you back on. I will ask you to send me the best email address to send this video to. That way I can get it emailed over to you in the next few days, and then we'll get you rescheduled. We'll have you back on. We'll talk more about some of the topics. We'll delve deeper, and then we'll talk about what's your nerdy passion. What's a nerdy passion? Shoot, what's a nerdy passion?
A nerdy passion. Me and my partner played video games starting in the pandemic, and we played multiplayer online video games like the MMOs and whatnot. We did up until... So we played first Fallout 76. Yeah, I know it has some hard knocks to it.
Husband plays
we played, it's fun. We played Only Human, which is a really weird one. It's like the weirdest one.
It's played it with my husband, my son.
The last one we played was Dune, the Dune game, and it's very fun. It needed some tweaking, but they did some tweaking to it, and it's supposed to be a lot better of experience now. Unfortunately, I will not get to know for the next 10 years, but I champion its success. So thank you so much, Shadow. I really appreciate the platform. We really wanted to be with new media creators as our big second interview, because that's where we started, on new media. So thank you so much for giving the opportunity.
Thank you again for coming on. I greatly appreciate it, and the fact that, like I said, that post saying, well, you've turned down or delayed others and you said yes to mine, I'm like, oh, that makes me feel really good, actually, because I'm trying.
That is an entirely true statement. We wanted to be consistent with our values. I wanted my first, and I was lucky enough for someone to reach out and enable that. I wanted our first interview to be in a veteran space because it's a huge part of my identity, but I wanted to make sure that the first couple interviews we were able to get reflected our media landscape. And so thank you so much for allowing us to make the case that new media is a very stable part of this fight, is a very legitimate part of this fight. And thank you so much for your work as a journalist. I appreciate it.
Honestly, new media is the way to go. You can't trust the established media. You're going to have to go to the podcasts and the small streamers who are actually doing the work and going out and finding the people and finding the truth and then sharing it. Because, well, just look at Fox and CNN and all the best, ABC. You can't trust them anymore.
We will make it trustworthy again. But let's start here and let's fight upwards. All right. Thank you so much, Shadow.
I'll talk to you soon.
Have a good one. Out.
You too. So everyone, that was Colin Jones. He is running for United States President 2028. He is just starting his campaign. They announced on March 15th, and we were lucky enough to be one of their first interviews. So I will be reaching out to him to follow up and get another interview scheduled, and we will find out more about what he wants to do for us. Yep. So I'm excited, guys. This is a launching point. Like, this is interview number 24, and we are just started. I have 17 more scheduled for this month right now, and I even have 6 appointments still available, so I figure those will probably be scheduled within the next week, and I'm already booking for the second week of June. So if you know anybody you would like to have on, please get them my information. Let me know. I'll reach out to them if I haven't already, and we'll get them scheduled. Much love, everybody. Thank you for coming and hanging out. I appreciate it all. Take care.